He's known as the most useless master in the sect. No one respects him, no one takes him seriously, but everything changes when he accepts a new disciple, because this girl is not ordinary. She is the reincarnation of an extremely powerful empress. The problem is, the more she observes her master, the more she realizes he's not weak at all. He's just pretending. Now both of them are hiding insane secrets, while living in the same sect, in a silent game of power, suspicion, and mystery. And without further delay, let's jump straight into the full video and see what happens next. In a peaceful sect, a young man managed to reach the 108th medicinal field. His system had notified him that the great law of myriad manifestations had been upgraded to the 9th level, which made him wonder just how far that power had advanced. He asked the system to open the status panel. It showed that he was currently 23 years old and possessed a 3-star talent. In addition, he noticed that his intelligence was only at 1 star and complained that the system did not need to be so harsh on him. However, his myriad human manifestations ability was at level 10. This left him excited, as he would finally be able to meet the half-saint soon, named Qing Shui. Thrilled by the situation, he kissed his tool as a form of gratitude. But at that exact moment, a woman arrived and found the action somewhat strange. The protagonist noticed and shouted that she was getting everything wrong. However, she simply held his head and gently comforted him, saying that her junior disciple had grown up and that this senior sister would need to visit him more often from now on. Qin Tian warned that he could not breathe and explained once again that it was not what she was thinking. Yet she told him to be quiet and said she understood everything since he was already of age and had been alone on Zhangjian Peak all this time. And it must be hard to endure loneliness when the night is deep and quiet. Qin Tian asked her to stop saying such things because she was not understanding anything. However, he decided to change the subject and asked why she was there. She said that it was the day when the Kunlun sword sect recruited disciples and that the sect master wanted him to go as well. Ever since he became the master of Zhangjian Peak, he had not recruited any disciples, and because of that, the sect master had a good opinion of him. The protagonist felt somewhat reluctant, saying that teaching disciples was very tiring, but he agreed that he should show up. He said he would change clothes and asked her to wait a moment, but she offered to accompany him while he changed. Embarrassed, the protagonist said there was no need and thanked her for the kindness. Meanwhile, 2 people were talking, saying that the saintess had fled to the Kunlun sword sect and that this matter required the sect master's personal judgment. Therefore, they needed to return immediately to the demonic sect. Meanwhile, at the center of the sect, several people were gathered. The master of the Kunlun sword sect, named Mo Wentian, was sitting and observing everything. The protagonist appeared very well dressed, and all the girls around him said he was very handsome and that just seeing him made them restless, because besides being handsome, he was gentle and refined like jade, not to mention that he was also graceful and elegant. So using the finest words in the world would not be an exaggeration to describe him. On the other hand, the men felt somewhat annoyed, saying that a mere cultivator of the spiritual movement realm dared to recruit disciples, and that if he had not saved the former master of Zhangjian Peak, the famous Jiang Qingsui, he should not even be in that sect since he had no talent. However, the protagonist ignored both the praise and the criticism and sat beside the sect master with his book on the super collector editing method. Dissatisfied with the situation, the sect master patted his head while shouting that he should look at himself in the mirror because the dignified master of Zhangjian Peak was spending his days planting herbs and strolling with birds. Moreover, his cultivation was still only at the spiritual movement realm, and she questioned whether he was not ashamed of that. Qin Tian felt a little confused and asked if she was not the one who had told him to appear. But his leader grew even more irritated, saying that he was quite bold to talk back to her. The protagonist realized that things were not going well for him and tried to leave. But his senior sister appeared, telling the sect master that everything was fine and asking her not to provoke him anymore. She explained that as the only venerable of the saint realm within that sect for thousands of years, junior brother Jiang should have his own unique vision and reasons for liking the protagonist. Wentian told her to pay attention to her posture since some things were resting on top of Qin Tian's head. The other men felt jealous, saying that being handsome could really take people wherever they wanted, because they could not believe that even the sect master, one of the 6 great half-saints of the eastern continent, and the master of Su Peak, one of the 3 great beauties of the eastern continent, had been charmed. Wentian announces to everyone that the test is about to begin. The candidates for new disciples start measuring their strength, and after several of them are tested, the examiner calls Miao Ling. A beautiful woman steps forward and everyone is stunned, saying that she is incredibly beautiful, almost like a fairy. The other peak masters immediately begin arguing among themselves, claiming that she will become their disciple. After taking the test, the amount of power within her body shocks everyone. Even the sect master is surprised, saying that it is the Ice Phoenix bloodline. At once, all the masters approach her, including the sect master, who emphasizes that she wants to take her as a personal disciple and asks if she is willing, but Miaoling remains silent, showing that she's not very interested. The others are shocked to see that even the sect master has been rejected, which means they still have a small chance. All the men around her try to persuade her to become their disciple, yet she simply ignores everything around her. The sect master, slightly irritated at being rejected, asks her to choose a peak she wishes to join and stresses that within the sect she will not lack resources for cultivation. Miaoling looks at Qin Tian, who is the only one who has completely ignored her presence. Without hesitation, she points her finger at the protagonist and says she would very much like to join Zhangjian Peak. The protagonist is so surprised that he questions what is going on and whether he is really being dragged into gossip. Miaoling was the unparalleled emotion empress in a previous life, renowned throughout history. However, she was framed and ambushed by 3 experts of the Emperor realm. After all that, she was reborn in this world and almost turned into a furnace by the master of the demonic sect. Because of this, she managed to escape from the demonic sect and joined the sword sect, choosing a weak peak master. As long as her identity is not discovered and with the supreme record of oblivion from her previous life, she will certainly return to the Emperor realm, and this time, she will definitely punish all those individuals. But for now, after the protagonist accepts her as a disciple, he takes her to her new residence. Though everything is in complete chaos, he says that room will do, as the bedroom suits her very well. Miaoling questions whether this guy truly never cleans his own house. A fly buzzes near her, making her sneeze. The protagonist approaches and touches her face, but Miaoling quickly steps back in alarm, asking if he is trying to do something. Qin Tian is confused and explains that there was a bit of dirt on her face and he only wanted to help clean it, then asks why she is so agitated. However, because of everything she went through in the demonic sect, she was simply frightened and backed away, trembling with fear. The protagonist decides to drop the matter and points out that now that she has chosen to join him as a new disciple, there are some rules she must follow. As he speaks, she thinks that in her past life, male cultivators would not even dare to look directly at the Empress, yet this guy truly dared to take advantage of her. The protagonist continues explaining and says that first of all, he is a very busy person, since he spends his time cultivating and watering plants, which takes up much of his time, so he may not have much time to teach her. Miaoling keeps staring at him and notices that the same finger that touched her face is the one he is holding up, and when she finally recovers her cultivation, she will cut off that finger. Qin Tian then says that secondly, he will assign her some trivial tasks, but she is still trying to be certain which finger it was, so she does not cut off the wrong one. After explaining the situation, he sits down and asks if she is truly willing to follow these rules. Miaoling kneels in front of him and says she is willing to follow. The protagonist is impressed to see that the girl still practices swordsmanship even after becoming a disciple, which shows she is very diligent. But in truth, she is planning to cut off both his hands just to be safe. Suddenly, the system begins sending repeated notifications, congratulating the host for taking in a talented disciple and explaining that this woman is a reincarnated empress, so he must teach her cultivation very well. In addition, he receives several rewards, and all martial arts he has learned will now be used at 1 level higher, while the reward granted is the supreme sword technique, the heart sword art, along with a first-rate emperor weapon, the glacial ice emperor sword. The protagonist is astonished to see that the rewards are truly incredible. Barely able to contain his excitement, he starts jumping for joy and his new disciple asks if he is alright. Qin Tian quickly composes himself and says that since she has become his new disciple, he has not given her anything yet, so he would like to present her with something special. He takes the sword he just received from the system into his hand and offers it to her. Miaoling, who did not expect much from her master, questions what good things a mere cultivator of the spiritual movement realm could possibly offer. But the moment she takes the sword in her hand, she feels the blade radiating warmth and instinctively grips her own hand tightly. After examining it more carefully, she realizes that it is actually a first-rate emperor weapon. Still unable to believe it, she asks if he is truly giving that to her as a gift. Qin Tian says yes, and adds that the sword should be acceptable. She wonders how he can call something like that merely acceptable and questions whether this guy cannot survive without bragging, since the sword is far more than acceptable. All weapons, techniques, and elixirs are divided into levels: yellow, profound, earth, heaven, emperor, and sovereign. Each tier has lower, middle, and upper grades, as well as a peak quality. In her previous life, it was a low-grade emperor weapon that led to her downfall. Suspicious, she tells her new master that they had never met before. So why is he giving something so good and rare to her? Qin Tian asks what she means by why, since it should be normal for a master to give a disciple a gift. She ends up agreeing, saying that if she thinks about it that way, it does make sense. However, the gift is a bit extravagant. The protagonist points out that if she does not want it, she can simply return it, because he also has a pair of socks he has worn for many years. So if the problem is that the gift is too extravagant, those socks can serve as a present for his disciple instead. Hearing that, she immediately refuses and thinks that she does not want those smelly socks, asking herself whether this is really just a gift for a disciple. Even if she cannot figure out the truth, she must bind the sword first no matter what. After deciding to accept the gift, she pricks her finger and lets a drop of her blood fall onto the blade. A shocking amount of energy begins to circulate through the area, frightening her as she wonders why this is happening. However, the energy keeps increasing, forming a pillar that stretches from the earth to the sky, visible from several kilometers away. Another woman, who is some distance away, senses this presence and remarks that it is interesting, and that once she leaves seclusion, she will personally visit this sword sect. To contain all that energy, the protagonist intervenes and makes the sword disappear. He scolds his disciple, telling her to stop fooling around because the sect master is here. Miao Ling cannot understand how he extinguished the anomaly with just a single movement. Qin Tian asks her to come outside with him. Outside, Wen Tian is already waiting for them. Miao Ling greets the sect master, but Wen Tian ignores the new disciple and goes straight to the protagonist, yelling at him and calling him a scoundrel. Qin Tian is confused and asks what she is doing. The sect master demands that he explain in detail, since the anomaly just occurred on his peak, and asks whether he was responsible for it. But the protagonist asks if she truly believes that someone in the spiritual movement realm could cause such a commotion. Wen Tian ends up agreeing, and the protagonist adds that it was merely an anomaly and that if it appeared, there is nothing that can be done. Wen Tian reprimands him, questioning what he knows about such matters, since an anomaly like that appearing within the sect will surely bring trouble. However, the protagonist says that every anomaly or phenomenon is like dewdrops and lightning, so she needs to relax a little. Wen Tian begins to walk away, saying that he just needs to be a bit more careful. As soon as the sect master leaves, Miao Ling once again takes out her Glacial Ice Emperor sword and thinks about how her master casually produced a high-level Emperor weapon capable of causing a heavenly anomaly and then made the anomaly disappear with a single wave of his hand. After that display of power, she looks at the protagonist, feeling more and more curious about her master. The next day, early in the morning, an animal was counting and had already reached 7,664. He says that the plan for the day begins in the morning, and that only by cultivating persistently every single day will there be a chance to escape the evil god, and therefore, that golden crow will absolutely have a bright future. However, in the middle of its training, the protagonist appears and grabs it by the neck. The other crows tremble in fear, saying they must stop that evil god who slaughters demons without even blinking. The protagonist plucks a few feathers from its body, and shortly after it ends up being slaughtered. As he carries the crow back to his house, he remarks that the meat is firm enough and worthy of being the most disciplined golden crow of the demon-locking pagoda. Miao Ling will have a delicious meal that day. Meanwhile, Miao Ling is focused, training her movements and practicing her icy sword intent. And with a simple motion, she cuts and freezes everything around her. She thinks that sword intent is indeed not something easy to comprehend, even with the experience from her previous life. As she concentrates on her next strike, the protagonist appears and shouts for her to come eat, but she refuses and prepares for her next move. In the blink of an eye, he appears behind her and, with a frying pan, blocks her strike, saying that she needs to eat. Miao Ling is startled, wondering when he appeared, since she did not sense his presence at all, and she would also like to know what kind of rule that is. However, the protagonist acts like a master and says that his rules are absolute. Miao Ling falls silent and obeys. Shortly after, they sit down at the table to eat, and upon smelling the aroma of the dishes, she thinks it is extremely delicious, as just the scent alone feels as if she's already tasting the food. Suddenly, the protagonist appears with another dish, saying it is chicken soup and that it is ready, but Miao Ling is slightly uneasy at the smile on his face. As he serves the chicken soup, he says that he bets with that meal she will probably be able to break through to the first level of the Golden Body realm. She asks if he is alright, since the cultivation realms are divided into mortal transformation, transcendence, spiritual movement, golden body, nirvana, creation, demigod, saint realm, and emperor realm. In total, there are 9 major realms, and each realm is divided into 3 levels, so how could she possibly break through so easily just by eating? However, as soon as she tastes the chicken soup, she feels something inside her body and drops the bowl to the floor. She can barely control herself, her breathing becomes heavy, her body temperature rises, and confused by everything, she wonders what kind of feeling is emerging within her. The blood that flows from the heart takes 20 to 25 seconds to circulate throughout the body, Yet this flow of heat takes only 5 seconds. She tries her best to restrain herself, thinking she must endure it, but soon realizes she cannot hold on any longer. She lets that entire flow invade her body, and all the sensation that had been suppressed begins to spread, and she thinks it is delicious and satisfying. This means that dish is truly a delicacy of the mortal world. After a storm of sensations, she collapses onto the ground in a vulnerable position and, still breathing heavily, asks herself whether she truly succeeded. Qin Tian stares fixedly at his disciple, because as a teacher he must carefully observe whether his student is having a good reaction. The protagonist calls out to his disciple and says that he is the master here, and if he says she can advance, then she can advance. Otherwise, that Golden Crow King would have been wasted. She is shocked to discover that he used the Golden Crow King to make soup, which makes her think that her master is definitely beyond the spiritual movement realm, since all his feats and actions show that he is far stronger than someone at that realm. However, the protagonist is merely more satisfied with himself, thinking he is one step closer to making dishes that can truly shine. Curious, Miao Ling stands up and approaches her master, asking if he is. Qin Tian interrupts her, telling her to stay quiet and emphasizing that people should always keep a bit of mystery because, just as he has secrets, she also has hers. That leaves her even more stunned. Miao Ling thinks that perhaps her master knows her true identity. After finishing his meal, Qin Tian stands up and tells her to remember to finish all the food and then come to the table. Miao Ling grows irritated seeing that he is taking advantage of her again and thinks that sooner or later she will cut off his hands. Elsewhere, several monsters were frozen in place, arguing with the protagonist, saying that he goes there every day to capture some of them. However, the dragon was already irritated and said that this time the protagonist had knocked right on his door. Another monster, resembling Bigfoot, said it would be much better for the protagonist if he immediately returned the other demon kings he had captured. The bird woman said that this was very wicked, yet she actually liked a bit of all that malice, inviting him to stay and spend the night drinking with her. Qin Tian told them not to worry and said that all the others he had captured were doing very well, with rooms and even board, just no alcohol, and that in fact he was there to borrow some demon emperor blood, and the more he could get the better, as if he intended to drain them to the last drop. The bird woman was enchanted by the protagonist's wickedness and said it was wonderful to hear that, but her companion told her to wake up, because that meant he would end up dead. The dragon, already furious about the situation, said that now the protagonist had gone too far and tried to attack him. The monkey attempted to help his companion, but Qin Tian said that unfortunately, if they would not lend the blood, he would have to take it by force. And with a single movement, he broke the monkey's staff. However, that was only the first part of the attack. The protagonist used his manifestation ability and made the divine beast Zhuanwu appear in front of the monkey, swallowing him whole. Seconds later, the monkey fell without any reaction, and Qin Tian said he had already succeeded, though he was short on time and asked the other two to attack together. The dragon realized that the protagonist was far too strong and asked the bird woman for help. She agreed, though reluctantly, since she hated to harm such a handsome face. The two combined their attacks and created the fusion technique of wind and thunder, charging forward. Qin Tian merely smiled, saying that was quite a coincidence because he could do that as well. Stepping back, he struck the ground, transforming it into the white tiger of the 4 symbols of Lesser Yin. As he gathered energy, he formed the Heart Sword and unleashed the Heart Sword journey. The bird woman could not believe how that was possible, but with extreme ease he defeated the other two. However, he was beginning to feel cold after spending so much time in that icy climate. Moreover, he had already been away from home for several days and began to wonder whether that little girl was already missing him. After taking what he wanted, he returned home. Not long after, a huge explosion erupted in the alchemy room. Miao Ling was startled and asked whether her master had already returned. She went to check and saw that he was indeed in the middle of all that chaos, having practically blown the entire alchemy room to pieces. The protagonist saw her and was delighted, saying she had arrived at the perfect time and handed her a pill, telling her to eat it while it was hot, since it was a pill he had personally refined especially for her. Miao Ling stared at it and asked if it was truly the Demon Emperor pill. When she realized what she was holding, she panicked, because it was a first-rate heaven-grade pill called the Demon Emperor pill. And even in her previous life as an empress, obtaining such a pill had been difficult. She realized that the days her master had been away were all because of her. Qin Tian looked at her and asked why she was not eating yet and whether it was because she thought the medicine might be too bitter, but she said the taste did not matter and questioned whether he truly believed that place was appropriate. When he looked behind him, he understood what he had done and admitted that the place did seem somewhat unsuitable. So they moved elsewhere and she consumed the pill, which quickly began to take effect. Qin Tian watched her and thought that slowly, he needed to transfer his spiritual energy into her body. Moreover, her condition was excellent, and this was the awakening. but suddenly she turned toward him and pushed him back, drawing closer and closer, her body burning as she looked at him and said that she wanted him. Qin Tian was startled and asked whether she truly meant that, but she simply stopped him from speaking. Qin Tian thought that he was a transmigrator who had obtained a system and was now facing a major crisis of his innocence. Miao Ling was completely overcome, saying that this time her master had nowhere to escape. He shouted for her to come to her senses, since there was not that level of intimacy between them, but she refused, saying that if there was no intimacy, they could create it here and now, because just by sensing her master's scent, she felt ready to take the next step. The energy around her shifts, and the protagonist realizes that the medicinal effects of the Demon Emperor pill are about to completely dissipate. He thinks that, first of all, he is an honest gentleman, so he must guide her medicinal effects toward her awakening. And, as a dedicated master, he channels all that energy to the proper point. However, she gets a little carried away and bites him, leaving him slightly annoyed while she laughs. Suddenly, she feels something growing within her, and the awakening finally happens. An overwhelming amount of energy floods the area. Qin Tian realizes that the breakthrough was a success. Immediately afterward, the system appears and announces that the host disciple has awakened the ancient Ice Phoenix bloodline of Emperor grade, advanced 1 realm, and reached level 1 of the Nirvana realm. In addition, the host's aptitude has been promoted to grade 7, and the rewards have increased by 60%. He thinks that this time he has obtained a great harvest and, on top of that, kept his innocence intact. Miao Ling temporarily loses consciousness due to the awakening, so he decides to let her rest for a while. Sometime later, while drinking his tea, he notices that she has awakened. She asks what happened between them, and the protagonist says that to make things clear, as a master, he is firm and unmoved. And besides, she was the one who initiated everything, so she should be more careful in the future since there is a distinction between master and disciple. Still confused, she asks what he is talking about, but the protagonist simply runs off, saying he needs to take care of something. Miao Ling looks at her own hand, wondering whether she really did something, because it seems like, until she suddenly realizes what happened and shouts, telling her master to wait immediately. But before she can go after him, the sect leader arrives along with other members and asks whether her bloodline has awakened. Miao Ling does not know how to respond. However, the leader, excited, says that this is excellent and that it seems heaven has blessed Kunlun, since she has the potential for the Saint Realm, which means the sect will have a second Saint Realm. As always, the envy of others is uncontrollable and utterly regrettable. The other peak masters say that Miao Ling should not remain on that peak any longer, and besides, she has heavenly talent, so it is not appropriate for her to stay with someone as useless as the protagonist. Therefore, she should have a reliable master to guide her properly. The sect leader reflects on this for a moment and says, it does seem reasonable. But Miao Ling grows irritated by such comments and declares that her awakening was entirely thanks to her master, and that if they dare to speak ill of her peak and her master again, she will have to ask them to leave immediately, as they are not welcome there. Everyone is left speechless. Suddenly, another person rushes in calling for the sect master, saying something very bad is happening. One of the masters tells the young man to watch his words and have some dignity. The youth apologizes for his behavior but says there is no time to argue, since the demon race is attacking the sect. Wentian tells Miao Ling and Qin Tian to hide. The young man's master scolds him, saying he has said that before and it was false, and asks whether he is certain this time that the demon race is truly there. He says yes, and reports that it must be the phantom of the Ice Phoenix that attracted their attention. The sect master says that if that is the case, then they will go meet these demons. Several people gather to see what is happening, and a small army of demons is hovering overhead. One of them declares that the ancient Ice Phoenix bloodline is right there, and shouts for them to hand over the Ice Phoenix bloodline immediately. With just the aura of the demon leader alone, the pressure is already terrifying. Even Miao Ling, who is some distance away, begins to feel unwell upon sensing the aura of a demon emperor of the dragon race. Moreover, she realizes that this aura feels somewhat familiar and seems to resonate within her in some way. After thinking for a moment, she finally understands that the demon emperor pill carries the exact same dragon aura, since there is blood within that pill, and when dragon blood encounters the phoenix blood in her body, it awakens her truest emotions, and that was precisely why she acted that way with her master. Remembering what happened, she gently opens the door, calling out for her master and asking whether he did that on purpose, but when she looks inside the house, she realizes that no one is there. The sect leader also releases her aura, declaring that a mere dragon demon emperor dares to make such a bold claim. He tries to attack her, but she defends with ease, asking where all that arrogant aura went and continuing to mock him, questioning whether he truly plans to destroy that place with such pathetic strength. The emperor admits that his strength is indeed insufficient, but with Qingpeng and Mihu, there are 3 demon emperors in total, so perhaps that will be enough. Moreover, within 5 minutes they will arrive, and then she will not be able to protect the sect alone. Wentian grows concerned, asking whether there really are other demon emperors present. Not far from there, Qingpeng was arguing with Mihu, saying it was all her fault because he was merely recovering. So, what exactly was she watching? She explains that the episode was so short that she thought there would not be time. However, the protagonist was already near them, and holding a paper airplane marked with the number 78, he says he will invite contestant number 78. As soon as he throws the paper airplane, he tells it to fly and catch up to them. Qingpeng notices several paper airplanes following them and asks Miho whether those are some new pets of hers. She cannot understand how that is possible. Suddenly, the monkey notices a bit of fire coming from the plane, and right after that, a huge explosion occurs. They barely manage to escape, yet they have no idea where it came from. When they look ahead, they see a giant frying pan approaching. The protagonist appears and says that the road is closed and they should return the way they came. The two realize that he is the same scoundrel who injured them last time. They ask whether he belongs to the Kunlun sect. The protagonist congratulates them for guessing correctly and says that now there is a prize. However, the two emperors are utterly terrified, as they already know how powerful their opponent is, and they politely apologize for the disturbance, saying they will withdraw immediately. Qin Tian asks why they're running so fast since they have not yet received their prize. He uses the great manifestation once again, and a hand emerges from the sky, the golden dragon, and a massive explosion strikes the two, pulverizing them instantly. He remarks that they are still far too weak, since they cannot even make a single move. Meanwhile, the Dragon Emperor and the sect leader were staring at each other. She says that half an hour has already passed and the allies still have not arrived, asking whether they are reliable. Realizing there is nothing more he can do, the Dragon Emperor finally gives up and calls his followers to retreat, vowing that he will make those two pay when he returns. The people watching celebrate, seeing that they are finally safe and that this was expected of their leader. However, she knows that the demons are now eyeing Miao Ling, so she must go there immediately. As he leaves, the Dragon Emperor is utterly furious, saying it is true that he was stood up by those two, and just thinking about it makes him extremely angry. One of his subordinates tells him not to be so upset and offers some water, but the Emperor remains irritated, saying that will not solve anything, and that if he were stronger and had tied up that stinking woman, they would not be in such a miserable situation. Because of that, he does not notice Qin Tian passing on the other side. Qin Tian is carrying a cow while heading home, saying that it has been quite a while since he last ate beef, so tonight's dish must be a meat stew. The next morning, the protagonist wakes up under the blinding sunlight. However, he finds it a bit strange, since from his room he can only see the sunset, which means he slept through the entire day. He remembers that Miao Ling used to bother him every morning, saying it was time to cultivate and that he needed to get up and cultivate with her. And now, after a month, he has finally found peace, since she has stopped disturbing him. Excited about the situation, he starts chasing after the cow to celebrate. Later that night, Miao Ling is trapped inside a cage in the middle of the forest. The protagonist goes to her and begins to release her, saying it is time to eat and that they will have a great meal that night. However, she refuses again, saying she no longer needs to eat. He becomes confused when he sees so many red threads around her, asking what happened, since before she was the embodiment of icy beauty. Miao Ling tells him not to touch her, explaining that it is merely a side effect of cultivating the Tai Shang Wangqing record. The protagonist thinks about it for a moment and begins to recall that he has heard about it somewhere before. She explains that perceiving destiny means forgetting emotions, and that Tai Shang is a cultivation technique that pursues the path of emotionlessness, leading directly to the Emperor stage. The protagonist reprimands her, saying she is completely wrong and has entirely misunderstood it. He begins to explain that the technique does not cultivate a lack of emotion, but rather having emotions without being bound by them, dealing with emotions with broad vision and detachment. Miao Ling looks at her master as if he were a true god and asks if she was mistaken. Her master then says that in truth, whether having emotions or being without emotions, neither path would suit her very well. As a sword cultivator, it is more appropriate for her to act according to her own whims, so she is better suited for the cultivation technique he has in his possession, the heart sword art. And as seen before, the protagonist used this very technique to defeat the emperors, which shows that he is at least already in the supreme realm. He asks what she thinks of this suggestion, and adds that it only costs 200 taels. She asks whether the supreme realm he is referring to is the one a whole realm above the emperor realm, and he answers yes. Without hesitation, she hands over 2 gold coins, saying she will take it. However, she only handed over 2 coins while the book cost 200 taels, Yet, as she holds the book, she looks like Smeagol clutching his precious. She thinks that in her previous life, she went through countless trials and never obtained it. But in this life, it was so simple that she acquired it with just a stretch of her hand. Before leaving, she looks at her master laughing and thanks him. The next day, another girl approaches, calling the protagonist Uncle Master, but he asks her to keep quiet. That was Yan Qingxi, Wentian's personal disciple. He explains to her that Miaoling's previous cultivation technique had run into problems. Qingxi asks if she is all right. The protagonist says his disciple is very well, and that now, with his help, she is cultivating a new technique even more powerful than the previous one. Qingxi is impressed, saying that was expected of her Uncle Master. While Miaoling was cultivating, she kept hearing things like, "How delicious, what is this, branded fries? My cooking is very good. Uncle Master is the best in the entire sect." Gradually, this began to irritate her, and furious, she shouts that the two of them can go talk by the river, on top of the mountain, or even inside a volcano. She does not care, she just needs to cultivate in silence. Qin Tian says he knows and asks whether she knows why he is doing that. Elegantly, he says that as the saying goes, not being stirred by external things is called tranquility. Not being filled by external things is called emptiness. Only by possessing a heart that can remain balanced in the face of any danger can one walk farther on the path of the Tao. Therefore, all of this is to temper her state of mind. Qingxi applauds, saying her Uncle Master is an excellent teacher. Miaoling ends up agreeing with the explanation, saying it actually makes sense. The protagonist explains that if left too long, the soda will lose its fizz and the fries will become soft, so they must eat quickly. Miaoling stares at him. The protagonist asks why she is drawing her sword. Miaoling says that unfortunately today, she must commit the utmost disrespect by eliminating her own master. The two start running and she chases after him, completely irritated by the situation. Sometime later, in the middle of an open pasture, the protagonist is meeting the Monkey Emperor. Qin Tian says he should not have come there. However, Qingpeng says that even so, he had to do it. They begin to fight and the protagonist laughs, saying there has not been the slightest change, and with ease defeats the Demon Emperor once again. He goes to the lake and takes another jar. Qingpeng tries to stop him, saying that is his wine, but Qin Tian writes his name on the jar and says now it is his wine. After taking all the wine bottles, he says he needs to return home to enjoy that wine with his disciple. While the emperor is left in tears, the protagonist walks away with unshakable peace and tranquility. Moreover, he realizes that he needs to check the system, since it has been quite a while and things must have piled up. Upon opening the system, he receives a notification saying that the rewards have been accumulated. The great manifestation of the self has been upgraded to level 1, the myriad ancient immortal body to level 1, the 10 laws of space-time, and the ability to summon his spiritual body to assist him. He is delighted with the rewards and celebrates, saying that it is time to soar. Meanwhile, at Hidden Sword Peak in the bamboo forest, Qingxi celebrates that she has finally mastered sword intent, as she had been troubled by it for 10 years, and thanks Miaoling for her help. Miaoling says it is nothing, since cultivating together with her also allowed her to gain something. Qingxi continues hugging her, saying that at first she had wrongly accused Miaoling, but that it was all the protagonist's fault and that it is true she is a beautiful and cute woman. Qingxi says goodbye, saying she needs to return to share the good news with her master. Miaoling stretches her body, saying that after cultivating for so long she is covered in dust and needs a bath. She quickly heads to the hot springs and enjoys the comfort. A few minutes later, she already expects someone to appear. Qin Tian, who has been watching, says he has just prepared a delicious meal and asks her to come enjoy the midnight snack with him. Miaoling is astonished, saying it always happens the same way and that this coincidence is absurd, whether she is changing clothes or even in the bathroom at home. Irritated, she asks her master whether this is intentional or an accident, but Qin Tian says it is obviously intentional and that she already knew that. Moreover, he adds that he managed to produce some 800-year-aged monkey wine, so she needs to hurry and get dressed to drink with him, and she does not need to worry because he will not peek. Even so, she asks him to leave politely. While waiting for her, the protagonist says that his daughter has grown up. Miaoling approaches and asks what he is thinking again, since he is smiling so innocently. Seeing how beautiful she looks, he is left speechless, and with an awkward smile says she looks wonderful in those clothes. Miaoling agrees, however she points out that the clothes her master bought for her are very tight around her attributes, making her feel a little short of breath. Suddenly, one of the buttons pops open and Qin Tian remarks that they are indeed very large. Miaoling chases after her master while he runs away, shouting that they can talk. The next day, in the garden, the protagonist is cooking for the two of them, and while eating, she says his cooking is getting better and better. Qin Tian tells her she should eat a bit more, but suddenly he notices something, and his disciple asks what is wrong. He says that the half-saint has brought people to Kunlun and that this may cause trouble. He invites her to go to the main peak to see what is happening. At the training ground of the main peak, several people are gathered. Wentian says she heard that Elder Leng Ya has been challenging disciples from various sects with the sect leader's eldest disciple, but she does not know why. Leng Ya says it is merely a misunderstanding. Leng Ya is the Grand Elder of Penglai sect. He explains that Xiao Hua has reached a bottleneck and wishes to spar with disciples from other sects to seek a breakthrough. But the real reason they are there is because they wanted to witness the legendary ancient bloodline. Miaoling thinks that Old Fox has no good intentions and must have other motives. Wentian apologizes, but unfortunately Miaoling is in seclusion. Leng Ya says it seems they arrived at an inconvenient time. Xiao Hua asks whether the lightning summoning art is ready yet, as he is getting bored while waiting. Suddenly, another young man arrives and apologizes for making him wait, but warns that Xiao Hua will regret allowing him to complete the lightning summoning art. He is the son of the Thunder Peak Master. The young man prepares to attack and charges forward, saying that once it is over, there will be no use crying. But Xiao Hua remarks that unfortunately, in his eyes, the opponent is merely average, and using only a mid-tier heaven-grade martial skill, he strikes the Peak Master's son, sending him crashing violently into the wall and defeating him with ease. The spectators cannot even see what happened, as it all occurs too quickly. The Thunder Peak Master becomes furious, but Xiao Hua apologizes, saying the boy was too weak and that he truly did not expect him to be unable to block even a single move. Eager for the next fight, he tells the next person to come up. However, no one steps forward, which leaves him somewhat disappointed. Qingxi goes to her master and says she wants to participate, because if this continues, the confidence of all the other disciples will be destroyed. Her master tells her to be very careful. Qingxi agrees and says that for safety, they need to call the junior sister as well, but Wentian questions what the point of calling her would be, since she is not good enough. Qingxi reprimands her master, saying she knows nothing. She explains that under the guidance of the little uncle master, Miaoling has already comprehended sword intent and moreover, has glimpsed the threshold of a deeper sword intent because of it. Wentian cannot believe it and asks her disciple if she is truly saying that the protagonist taught Miaoling swordsmanship and made her understand sword intent. Qingxi says she is absolutely certain. The leader finally understands why that boy always seemed strange, and the real reason is that he has always been holding back. Qingxi steps onto the arena and says she will be next. Xiao Hua starts laughing and says that if even the senior sister of this place is stepping forward, then they might as well make a bet, and that bet will be a slot in the carefree secret realm. The rules are very simple. If she wins, his slot will be hers, and if she loses, then she must hand over one slot. Wentian realizes that their true objective is a slot in the carefree secret realm. She tells Qingxi to agree. Xiao Hua says that is settled and calls for the match to begin, inviting her to attack. He activates the Gale Sword intent while she uses the Blade of Wind Sword intent. He becomes excited to see that she also possesses sword intent and decides to reveal his true strength. Qingxi remarks that anyone can boast, but he tells her to just watch and prepares to strike, saying that this is a realm where sword intent has advanced even further. The fusion of sword intent and sword technique. With a devastating attack, he hits her, sending her soaring high into the air and defeating her. The leader grows worried while the others simply watch, saying she was thrown very high. Her sword falls to the ground, but the protagonist catches her in his arms, saying they have arrived. All the women look at the protagonist and say that Uncle Master is very handsome, and they envy the senior sister, because they also want to be held like that. Xiao Hua becomes jealous and says he does not understand how those vulgar people think that way all the time. But the moment he sees Miaoling, he is captivated by her beauty. He quickly walks over and grabs her hand, saying that his name is Xiao Hua, that he is the eldest disciple of the Penglai sect leader, and the foremost among the 3 great prodigies of the younger generation. He asks if he may know her name, junior sister, so that they can get to know each other better. He thinks she is phenomenal and dazzling. Leng Ya thinks that the true target has finally appeared, and now it is time to properly assess her other qualifications besides her bloodline. Qin Tian slaps Xiao Hua's hand away, calling him an insect. Xiao Hua becomes furious, thinking he is being called a bug, saying that Qin Tian is nothing but sticky trash. The 2 women grow angry and shout at him, saying the sticky one there is him. Xiao Hua tells them to wait a moment because he heard a rumor about a very handsome but completely useless Uncle Master here, and it seems that person is standing right there. The only explanation then is that everyone must be hypnotized by beauty. Therefore, he must save them all by showing that strength is what truly matters. Qin Tian tells them not to look, because that smile is so ugly that it is obvious he is thinking indecent thoughts, so he needs to be taught a lesson. Miaoling says she understands and adds that she will finish him in 3 moves so as not to humiliate the other sect too much. The two prepare to fight, and people begin to question whether it is really possible for her to win, since she has only been cultivating for a little over a decade. However, she has the ancient bloodline, and perhaps her cultivation speed is several times faster than most. Wentian asks how long Qintian intends to keep holding Qingxi. The protagonist explains that she was injured, so he is just helping, preventing her wounds from worsening. Xiaohua thinks Miaoling's cultivation should not be higher than Qingxi's, so with his current strength he can treat this as a sparring match, which will demonstrate his strength and dedication. Once again acting arrogantly, he tells her to make the first move, but in the blink of an eye he is struck by her. Miaoling calmly states that the first move has already passed, and that if not for her master's request, he would have been completely annihilated on the spot. Xiaohua curses at her, saying that if he had not deliberately let her win, she would not have even touched him. He tries to counterattack using a martial skill infused with sword intent, but his sword is completely shattered by her. Miaoling states that his movement is far too crude and that his skills are superficial, that true martial arts combined with sword intent should be different, and therefore she will demonstrate. She explains that sword intent relates to the bone, the martial skill to the flesh, and the skin to the outward form. Xiaohua grows desperate and is struck by her without any chance to defend himself. The crowd shouts that this is how a genius performs and that such trash is no match for their sect. Kneeling on the ground, Xiaohua asks how it is possible that she used the great sword intent of realization. Miaoling replies that nothing is impossible, and that now comes the final move, the Jade Bone Wind. Xiaohua is completely defenseless, like an ant trying to move a mountain, and the attack hits him. The leader asks whether she truly won. Xiaohua is entirely frozen, and everyone begins to celebrate, saying they have won, and that, it seems, among the younger generation, their junior sister is unmatched. The old elder quickly leaps forward and catches his disciple with a smile on his face, for he has finally found what he was looking for. After the end of the fight, Qintian and Qingxi praise Miaoling, leaving her a little embarrassed. In a distant place at the peak of a mountain, Leng Ya was informing the palace mistress that they had found the most suitable host. She carries the ancient bloodline of the Ice Phoenix and has mastered the sword intent of great perfection. Mu Yisui says that Leng Ya did a good job, and that once she recovers her physical body, she will unify the Eastern continent, and Leng Ya will be greatly rewarded. He thanks the palace mistress for the opportunity to serve her. Yixue says that that empress was ruthless, and that the humiliation she made her suffer will be repaid 100-fold once she is free. Meanwhile, in the secret realm, carefree, a group of people stood at the top of a mountain observing. The young woman explains that this is the secret realm opened at great cost by the Penglai, Kunlun, and Taibai sects. It opens once every 20 years and contains many opportunities, such as spiritual herbs and treasures. However, there are two restrictions. First, only those below the Nirvana realm may enter. Anyone who exceeds it will be expelled. Second, at most 9 people may enter after it opens. The key to entering that secret realm is the token in their hands. In addition, they must remember that after entering the secret realm, they will have only 7 days to explore. She asks them to make good use of this time, and if there are no questions, they may depart, as she will await good news from all the elites. After the explanation, the group jumps in to enter. Yixue had already prepared and notices that Miaoling has entered the secret realm. She asks one of her subordinates to take her there. Meanwhile, inside the secret realm, Miaoling was exploring the place, as she had become separated from her companions. Moreover, her master had not mentioned anything about this happening. She senses that something is watching her and asks who it is. A figure rushes toward her, but startled, she attacks and eliminates it with ease. A scroll falls from the body, and upon picking it up, she begins to read, wondering if this is the opportunity her master had told her about. It is a treasure map, showing the location of the sacred celestial phoenix fruit. She remembers that fruit because if she can eat it, she will surpass the limit of the Nirvana realm and be only a step away from the creation realm. Excited by her opportunity, she starts moving quickly in search of the sacred fruit, but a crow watches her closely. Sometime later, she finally finds the fruit and her eyes shine, for with that sacred celestial phoenix fruit, she will soon be able to advance to the creation realm. But just as she approaches, she steps into a trap and realizes it is a formation that seals movement. Yixue appears behind her, saying that now that body will be hers. Miaoling begins to freeze her own body, saying that it truly was a conspiracy, and that the mastermind behind it is a nascent soul, and clearly their goal is to seize her body and be reborn. Yixue realizes that something is wrong, and the body she had captured was only an ice clone. Irritated, she shatters the clone, having been deceived by a mere brat. Suddenly, she hears a noise and attacks, but Miaoling steps out of the explosion as if nothing had happened. Yixue is shocked to see that she is the ruthless empress. Miaoling asks who the idiot is that is trying to attack her. Yixue becomes so enraged that she starts shouting, saying that Miaoling caused the destruction of the heavenly demon palace and that her body was destroyed in the process as well, questioning whether she truly does not remember. Miaoling thinks for a moment and says she does not remember anything. Yixue is completely infuriated to see that her enemy does not remember her. However, she says she heard rumors that the empress had fallen and, judging by her current state, she must be in a reborn body. Miaoling simply laughs, asking how anyone could possibly know such a thing, and that if she wants to find out, she can try. Yixue confidently says she believes the rumors and that the empress has lost the power of her imperial realm, so at this moment she is merely a weakling in the Nirvana realm. She begins to attack, ordering the empress to obediently hand over her physical body, but Miaoling manages to dodge the first strike and uses the Ice Jade sword. The battle between the two grows immense in scale, causing multiple explosions throughout the forest. Yixue realizes that the sword blocking all her attacks is an imperial weapon. With that, she becomes even more excited, saying that it truly is her lucky day, for after obtaining a body with excellent talent, she can also acquire an unstoppable and unparalleled weapon. She continues pressing forward, telling the empress to surrender at once, but she does not want to damage the body she intends to take. However, Miaoling cuts off her hands, telling Yixue not to be so ridiculous, since she is only a soul in the Saint Realm who has lost her physical body. Moreover, the rules of that secret realm limit the strength of all outsiders, so those who exceed the Nirvana realm must seal their own cultivation to enter. Therefore, Yixue is no exception to the rule. Yixue dodges the attack and starts laughing, saying that the Empress is right. However, every rule has a loophole, and the carefree secret realm is no exception. As she releases her power, a tremendous pressure spreads around them. Miaoling grows concerned upon realizing that it is the power of a half-saint. Suddenly, Yixue vanishes from in front of her with incredible speed and appears behind her, saying that, to be more precise, a half-saint on the verge of reaching the saint realm is her current level, and now she will finally have a physical body again. Miaoling realizes she cannot move, and asks when that happened. Yixue replies that she should already know that gaining this power, which can be used inside the secret realm while exceeding the Nirvana realm, cost immense training and suffering. On the brink of death in the past, she had thought she needed to quickly recover her own soul because she could not fall there as she still had enemies to eliminate. She had to stay alive to achieve her revenge. A beast approaches Miaoling and she realizes it is a monster only at the half-saint realm, so even with her cultivation limited by the secret realm, she can still eliminate it. As soon as Miaoling realizes she has no chance of winning, she touches her amulet and calls for her master, saying that now it is his turn. Qin Tian senses the call. Some time ago, the protagonist had met with her, telling her that there were still 3 days before the opening of the carefree secret realm, and that inside it she would encounter dangers. So she needed to activate the special temporal token and always keep it close. She had asked how he could do anything while being so far away. Qin Tian explained that when she needed him, he would come out of that amulet to help her. Miaoling understood and stored it in a well-protected place, leaving Qin Tian speechless. The Empress told her master to be very careful when coming out. Returning to the present, he knows his disciple went to the carefree secret realm with her senior sister, so his time alone has returned, and, pleased with that, he thinks it is time to enjoy himself. He goes to a restaurant and orders noodles. Just by smelling the aroma and sensing the ingredients of the city, he is impressed, proving that the dish lives up to its reputation. But while he is eating, he hears his disciples cry for help and wonders if that truly is the distress signal. Xiaohua was ordering food when Qin Tian suddenly disappears from behind him. Yixue, who was about to accomplish her goal, asks the Empress if that truly was her final resort, because there is no need for more pointless fighting. She throws the amulet away, saying it is nothing but a useless object, but the protagonist appears wearing a mask covering his face and asks what exactly is useless. Yixue asks who he is, but she is struck, and, with just one punch, he sends her flying so forcefully that it causes a massive explosion. He holds Miaoling and asks if she is alright and what happened there. He also wants to know where the others are and why they are not together. Miaoling, barely able to speak, says she will transmit all the memories of that period to her master. Within seconds, he understands what truly happened and that Leng Ya and that woman are working together. And now the entire spectacle makes sense, because that old imbecile brought his disciple to challenge the others, only to find a suitable body for that woman. Miaoling asks her master why he is wearing a monkey hat, because it looks very silly. The protagonist explains that it is the secret that allows him to use his half-saint power to break through the restrictions of the secret realm. Furthermore, the principle is very simple. After eliminating demonic beasts in the secret realm, the soul of a demonic beast can serve as a substitute. His disciple says that if that woman can also use half-saint power, it means she eliminated a half-saint level demonic beast. The master replies that is exactly the case. Yixue regains consciousness, but she is completely terrified by that dreadful power since with just one punch, her soul was nearly destroyed. And it seems that the demonic beast soul within the protagonist is the sacred spiritual explosion monkey from the core of the secret realm, where power reigns supreme. Her soul could no longer withstand possessing the Empress's body, and even if she could still manage it, she would have no chance of fighting someone as powerful as the protagonist. Thus, the only option left is to use her original body. She gathers her power, saying that all of this is that woman's fault for turning her into a demonic beast. Meanwhile, the Empress is astonished that her master appeared so quickly since she had only just asked for help and he showed up immediately. The protagonist says that is obvious because, as a master, he always keeps his word. So if he said he would appear like lightning, then it is certainly true. The ground begins to tremble and they shout that something is moving underground. Suddenly, Yixue reappears in the body of a demonic beast, vowing to eliminate the Empress and that meddlesome man. She starts spraying venom at them, and the protagonist tells Miaoling to get away from there. However, she grows worried and tells him to be careful, but Qin Tian says not to worry and counterattacks with a barrage of punches. However, the blows have no effect at all. Yixue points out that his punches are far too weak and powerless compared to her defenses. The protagonist realizes that her skin is incredibly tough. Yixue attacks again, forcing him backward. He realizes that the fight is becoming more troublesome than he expected, and the most serious problem now is that he cannot break through her defenses. She keeps attacking and pressing forward, and with just a touch of his clothes, the fabric dissolves. He realizes it is venom, so he cannot allow it to touch his body under any circumstances. Miaoling shouts for her master to be careful, but before he realizes it, he is already trapped in a spiderweb and quickly wrapped into a cocoon. Yixue watches to see if anything will happen. Miaoling, who is also watching, is worried at first, but then understands what is truly happening. Yixue, still confused, asks if she has won and happily says that now the next enemy is... But suddenly a slash bursts out from inside the cocoon, and the protagonist frees himself with ease. He remarks that he had completely forgotten about the Ice Jade sword, but fortunately his disciple reacted in time. Yixue cannot understand how this is possible, but Qin Tian interrupts her, saying that now it is his turn to have some fun, and he uses the sun and moon hand seals combined with the single mouth, heart, and treasure head body seals. 3 seals are enough. He advances swiftly and Yixue screams to block that attack, but the gap in power between them is so vast that the protagonist pierces through her defense and body as if they were nothing at all, using his heart sword technique. After finishing the fight, he tosses the sword to Miaoling, telling her to grab it quickly because there is still good news. He looks at the fruits and says that they truly are there. Miaoling notices that the sacred fruit is completely unharmed. The protagonist picks up the fruit and says that this means the sacred fruit is especially for her, so she must eat it quickly as he will protect her. As soon as she consumes the fruit, something incredibly powerful begins to grow inside her body. The protagonist looks at the system and says it is done. The system congratulates him on his disciple reaching the peak of the Nirvana realm, and the host's login reward increases by 20%. Miaoling looks at her own body and realizes her energy is overflowing, and that after returning to the peak and entering seclusion for some time, she will be able to advance to the creation realm. The protagonist says that before that, there is still one thing she needs to resolve. With a chain, he begins searching through the mountain, and she asks what he is talking about. The chain continues advancing underground, and a few seconds later, the protagonist pulls it back, shouting that he has finally caught the one hiding thousands of meters beneath the surface. He has captured Leng Ya. She cannot believe that the Grand Elder was there. Leng Ya remarks that everyone says Kunlun's youngest uncle is useless, but it seems the protagonist managed to deceive them all. Qin Tian says he needs to return immediately because his noodles are getting cold, so he will leave that useless old man to her. She asks if he is really leaving already, but her master tells her not to worry, because he will transfer the remaining energy of the spiritual explosion monkey to her, and with that she will temporarily possess the power of a half-saint realm. He simply disappears, saying he will be waiting for her at the peak. The chain binding the old elder begins to loosen. He stands up, saying that it seems the protagonist has a lot of confidence in her, and asks whether she truly believes that a novice half-saint like her can defeat an experienced half-saint like him. However, she remains completely calm, since in her previous life she had been the ruthless empress, so when it comes to experience, she is unmatched. The elder tries to attack her, saying he would like to see whether she is really capable of fighting him. She dodges the attacks, thinking that this current body feels even lighter than she imagined, and that this must be the amplification of her bloodline after reaching a higher realm. Acting arrogantly, the elder asks what is wrong and questions whether that useless master failed to teach her how to use the abilities of a half-saint, but Miao Ling steps on his sword, saying she is merely getting used to the new power. She quickly corrects herself, saying that in fact she is simply recalling the sensations of the past. The elder keeps attacking, saying that even though she has the power of a half-saint, all she can do is dodge, so she is nothing but a frightened little girl, and now he will end everything before she can even touch the ground. Miao Ling calmly says that now it is her turn to act. The elder tries to strike her, but she vanishes from his sight and appears behind him with terrifying speed. She says she still has a strength that needs to be shown, and even though he blocks the attack, her power is so overwhelming that it hurls him against a rock with frightening force. She thinks that even with this strength compared to her past self, she's still very far behind. However, that is not important now, since she is only at the half-saint realm. The elder cannot understand how she possesses such incredible speed and immense power. Miao Ling says she does not have time and wants to end this farce quickly. The elder releases his true power, saying he has not yet shown what he is capable of, and even so, this little girl dares to speak so arrogantly just because she gained a slight advantage. Today she will understand what a true saint is. But Miao Ling continues smiling, asking what a mere half-saint really is compared to her true power, since she has eliminated so many half-saints that she cannot even count them. The battle continues, the explosions are terrifying, and the ending is already known to all. In another part of the forest, the group is searching for her, asking where she is. Miao Ling appears, saying she is right there. Jingxi runs to her with tears in her eyes and asks where she had gone because she was extremely worried. She also wants to know what happened, since they were all together the moment they entered that realm. Miao Ling explains that she just had a small, fortuitous encounter. Everyone grows curious and asks her to explain better. The Empress says that, in fact, when she entered the realm, a ruby suddenly appeared in her hand. While she vaguely explains what happened, the protagonist happily returns to his noodles. But as soon as he sits down at the table, he notices his bowl on the ground and asks what is going on. A great commotion is unfolding. The guards are being attacked by someone trying to capture the princess. Even as she attempts to escape, another person appears, asking where she is going and ordering her to surrender immediately. The other man behind her holds two people hostage, telling the princess that she probably would not want the citizens of that realm to get hurt. Worried about the situation, she wonders what she should do. While all of this is happening, the protagonist appears at a window shouting to the heavens that his bowl of noodles has fallen and that he did not get to eat anything, asking why he is being punished like this. The princess thinks this might be a good opportunity and shouts to the young master, saying she is Princess Ming Yilian of the Chongming Kingdom and asking for help. But one of the invaders warns the protagonist that this is the demon sex business and that if he does not want to lose his life, he should mind his own affairs. However, he chose an extremely bad moment to act arrogantly. The protagonist is so irritated about not having eaten his noodles that he tells the two villains they are making too much noise, since he was complaining to the heavens. In a matter of seconds, he unleashes an explosion so powerful that it pulverizes the villains and the ground beneath them, creating a massive crater. The princess is so frightened by the overwhelming power that she says, "It is incredible." She runs to the protagonist, thanking the young master for saving her life, and asks whether he would like to return to the palace with her so she can repay his kindness. But he refuses, saying he has other matters to attend to. He steps onto his flying pan while she keeps shouting for him to wait a moment. She realizes he has truly left, but fortunately she managed to record his appearance with a projection stone. Now she only needs to return and ask the intelligence agency to investigate and find out who that young master really is. On his way back home, the protagonist thinks it will still take some time for his disciple and the others to return to the sect, so he might as well go home and relax a bit. However, as soon as he arrives, he senses something strange. He opens the barrier and questions why there is a Saint Realm formation installed in his house. Looking around, he notices there is no sign of anyone, and that the place has been abandoned for at least half a month. He searches everywhere to see whether his father and mother are safe, but as soon as he steps on the floor, he realizes something is wrong. One of the tiles pops up, and he thinks it might be a trap. However, only two puppets appear. The puppets say that his parents went out to have fun with the household servants, and that he does not need to worry, but he should be careful of Shu. He does not quite understand and asks what exactly he should be careful about. Sometime later, the protagonist is walking through the forest and, excited, says it is time to log in for some good luck. As a reward, he obtains two super small master balls. Suddenly, a small object drops from the system and he stares at it. Irritated, he throws it to the ground, saying it is a scam, since he signed in for 49 days and all he received was that thing. He also tells the little bastard not to think he would fail to recognize it, because he has already defeated all the poke something that he cannot mention since he does not have the rights. Suddenly, a fox leaps out, but that thing on the ground captures the fox and pulls it inside. He realizes it really is that thing that starts with poke and ends with mon. He picks the object up from the ground, notices it is still making noise, and asks how long it will keep making that sound. Suddenly, another person arrives calling out to the protagonist and tells him to leave, because the sphere that captured the Empress of Qingqiu belongs to him. The protagonist turns around and asks what an empress is, emphasizing that the object does not belong to that man. The man is impressed by the protagonist's beauty and steps closer, saying that Fox is the Empress of Qingqiu, of that he is certain. Moreover, she is someone the Emperor Alliance wants to capture, and that alliance is very terrifying, so he should obediently hand her over. If he behaves, they can go somewhere more secluded and happily improve their cultivation together. The man squeezes a certain part of his own body and remarks that, at that moment, a powerful melody awakened within him. The protagonist is horrified and shouts for that pervert to stay away. The man becomes upset and starts crying, saying the young man really dared to say that, and for that he deserves to be crushed so he can never speak again. He tries to attack, but Qin Tian dodges and keeps his item safe. Completely enraged, the man tells the protagonist to stop dodging and immediately return the sphere. But the protagonist keeps insisting the pervert should stop lying because the sphere belongs to him. The man becomes utterly furious upon hearing that word again and starts attacking wildly, destroying everything around them. However, the protagonist manages to shake him off, but that thing keeps making noise until suddenly it stops. The man, who had been chasing the protagonist, is already exhausted, saying he cannot go on. Qin Tian shouts at him and calls him a pervert again, saying they will never see each other again. Once more, the man tries to grab him, but falls into a trap. And while the trap does all the work, the protagonist walks away wondering whether that fox is edible. Sometime later at the protagonist's house, the fox wakes up and asks where she is because it does not look like the Emperor Alliance, and without understanding what is happening, wonders whether someone saved her. Qin Tian, who had been waiting, says that the fox has finally woken up. She turns and asks who he is. The protagonist explains that this is the Kunlun sect and that he is her savior. But the Empress does not believe him and tells the protagonist to stop bragging since he is only at the spirit movement realm. And how could someone at that level possibly save someone in the Saint Realm? Qin Tian simply smiles and says she can believe it or not, but that pervert has already been turned into fireworks. The fox tries to run away, but the protagonist explains that not only did he save her, she also happened to fall and hit his magical artifact, so he signed a preliminary contract with her, and because of that, she cannot stray too far from him. The fox shouts for him to immediately break this contract because she needs to leave as soon as possible. Qin Tian explains that unfortunately he cannot do that, because the manual states that if the fox breaks the preliminary contract, she will be eliminated immediately. He reads further and says that the full contract must be signed, otherwise the fox will be violently eliminated in 3 days. She still refuses to believe him, asking who he thinks he is fooling. Qin Tian asks whether she can examine her own sea of consciousness, because she should be able to sense the contract information within it. She decides to test it and sees that he was telling the truth, so she asks if there is no other way. She then explains that she was framed and offended many powerful forces, so signing a contract with her means taking on her karma, which would harm him. Qin Tian tells her to relax, since they can sign the contract because he is very powerful and fears no karma at all. The Empress thinks she has just met a fool who only talks big and does nothing, but with no alternative, she decides she will have to find an opportunity to seize that object and then escape with it. The protagonist grabs the fox's paw, saying they need to sign the contract because the time limit is 100 years, or until her cultivation realm surpasses his. Upon hearing that she will be free once she exceeds him, she becomes excited, saying he should have mentioned that earlier because that condition is extremely easy. She only needs to cultivate for a while and she will surpass him. She agrees to sign the contract and the system announces that it has been sealed. As a result, he receives the reward of the Supreme Cultivation Method. The fox thinks that from now on she must cultivate as much as possible and strive to recover her level. That way she can break the contract and leave. But suddenly she feels intense pain in one of her paws, since the injuries she suffered earlier were severe. The protagonist notices and says he is a very good boss, telling the little rookie puppy to wait a moment because she needs to eat first. The fox becomes furious and says the rookie puppy is him and his entire family. Because of that, she refuses to eat, but her hunger keeps increasing, so she finds an excuse to feed herself, saying she is only doing it to gain strength to cultivate. After tasting a piece of meat, she realizes it is Demon King meat, and suddenly another tale sprouts. She realizes she may have been tricked, because once she finishes eating that entire table of Demon King meat, her cultivation will far surpass the spirit movement realm. Sometime later, the fox tries to escape at all costs, but the protagonist grabs her, saying she is injured and her realm is too low, so it would be dangerous to be alone. However, she continues refusing, saying she will handle it herself, but her paws slip and she falls into the water. The protagonist looks around and asks where the fox went. Suddenly, a woman begins rising from the water, calling the protagonist a scoundrel. She jumps on top of him and, irritated, asks whether he does not understand human language. However, he only notices that she is very well endowed. The protagonist did not expect a small fox to be so beautiful, much less to have such an impressive figure. The Empress realizes what he's implying, hides in embarrassment, and tells him to leave immediately. Qin Tian asks whether she truly wants him to go, because he was planning to give her something. The fox appears with only her eyes above the water, saying he is a great pervert and that she wants nothing from him. But as soon as she sees what it is, she asks whether that is a celestial fox pearl. The protagonist says yes, because if he remembers correctly, such a celestial beast pearl is formed when a celestial beast is killed and condenses all its spiritual power and laws into a single point. Those condensed by the fox race are called celestial fox pearls, and those of the dragon race are called celestial dragon pearls. Regardless of the race, any celestial is a supreme imperial treasure. Excited by the situation, she stands up and asks whether he truly intends to give that to her. He says yes, however, there are a few conditions. The fox asks what the conditions are because she will not agree to anything complicated. The protagonist looks at her and asks for a kiss. She does not agree with that idea at all, saying that it is only an imperial treasure and not worth her kiss. The protagonist asks if that is really so because he had been thinking of giving her that cultivation method along with the celestial pearl after receiving the kiss. But she simply laughs, saying she thought it was something else and almost cried over it, when in fact it is merely the supreme art of the celestial fox. The cultivation method of the fox race, the nine-tailed celestial scripture, is already the pinnacle of imperial-level cultivation techniques, and she does not need the supreme fox art he possesses. Qin Tian tells her that making such a hasty judgment is not a very good habit and asks whether she truly does not want to read it first before making her decision. He tosses the technique to her and she agrees to read it. However, she emphasizes that she does not believe there exists any cultivation method in this world more suitable for the fox race than the nine-tailed celestial scripture. The protagonist finds her attitude rather annoying, but waits while she reads. After some time, she becomes shocked and says that it is actually real, that cultivation method can truly allow her to cultivate all the way to the celestial fox realm. In the hundreds of thousands of years of fox race history, there has only ever been a single celestial fox. That celestial fox appeared by chance, using certain celestial materials and earthly treasures. Once she reaches the celestial fox realm, seeking revenge against the Emperor Alliance will be as easy as turning her hand. She asks whether he is really giving it to her, but when she looks at him, she realizes he is no longer there and asks where he went. The protagonist, who is standing behind her, says that a true gentleman never goes back on his word because no one is forced to make a promise, but once it is made, it must be fulfilled. Moreover, he remarks that a cup of wine after a bath is delightful and asks whether she has thought about it and whether it is worth it or not. Since the exchange truly is worth it, she says that a kiss is just a kiss, so she will go ahead. Qin Tian prepares himself and says he is ready. The two draw closer, but at that exact moment, Miao Ling arrives and throws her sword between them. The fox is startled, saying it passed just a few centimeters away from her and asking whether an enemy has appeared. Completely furious, Miao Ling says that because of the promise she made to her master, she left the secret realm and did not rest for even a second, all to return as quickly as possible. Qin Tian asks her to wait and let him explain, but she refuses, telling him to go straight to hell, calling him a perverted master. At last, the fox has recovered her cultivation, reaching the half-saint realm. She is the imperial daughter of Qing Chu, named Bai Xiaoru. However, what she expected does not happen. She storms back into the house angrily and asks the protagonist why the contract has not been broken, since she has already reached the half-saint realm. The system had already informed the protagonist that his little pet's strength is of the 9th rank, and because of that he received another reward. Miao Ling greets the little fox with a good morning, and the protagonist says he knows nothing about the contract. Furious at the situation, she curses her master, calling him a great liar and a mysterious man, as well as a stinking pervert. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, the three emperors go to see the Holy Demon Lord. The Holy Demon Lord asks why the three of them do not stay in their own territories and always rush over there. They report that they discovered the ancient Ice Phoenix bloodline. However, there is an expert by her side, so they were unable to bring her back. That expert is so powerful that he inflicted extremely serious injuries, and because of that, one of them remained in seclusion until that very day to recover. The Demon Lord says that is very interesting and asks where the bloodline is. Miho explains that the ancient bloodline is in the Kunlun sect. The demon lord asks whether that is one of those 3 ancient mortal sects, because if they had not ambushed him back then, his cultivation would not have stagnated for so many years. He orders the 3 to immediately gather the demon race. In 3 days, they will destroy that sect. The demon army began to move, and Wentian went to the ancestors, saying that the mountain holy demon intended to destroy the sect, so she was pleading for the ancestors to come out of seclusion. The ancestors told her not to panic and to seek an alliance with the other 2 sects, and the rest would be handled by the ancestors of those 3 sects. Meanwhile, the protagonist was calmly watching his 2 disciples train, and at last they managed to reach the Saint Realm. In addition, he obtained the reward of the Sword of Death, and it transformed 12 times. Dual Eternity. 3 days later, the 3 emperors, along with the army, advanced. But the alliance of the 3 sects was also prepared, and a great battle erupted between them. Sulan tried to confront Mihu, however her strength was not enough, and she was quickly captured. Wentian grew worried and became distracted, and the Dragon Race Emperor approached her, asking what she was looking for. Mihu thanked the tree for its assistance and said that now they needed to send Jade Sword Peak to Hell. But suddenly, a massive explosion occurred. Miaoling arrived and saved Sulan, telling Mihu that now her opponent was right there. Mihu was delighted to see that the Ice Phoenix bloodline had finally appeared. Miaoling told Sulan to rest for a while because she would take care of that tired bird. Meanwhile, the fox and the protagonist were merely watching. She asked her perverted master whether he was truly just going to stand there and watch. The 2 women began battling, and the pressure around them increased more and more, causing huge explosions everywhere. Even the sky itself split apart because of their clash. Miaoling began to gain a slight advantage and landed a powerful blow on her opponent. Mihu became completely enraged, saying that a mere 2nd-level creation realm cultivator dared to ruin her glory and immeasurable beauty, and because of that, she would have to be punished, with her arms and legs broken. Miaoling managed to defend against the attack, however she realized her strength was nearly exhausted. Mihu found an opening and struck her, sending her flying upward and destroying everything in front of her. She continued releasing more and more power and formed an energy sphere, making everyone else anxious. The fox told her perverted master that this was very bad, and once again asked what he was doing just standing there, because they needed to save her, but Qin Tian held her back, telling her not to be in such a hurry because the senior sister was fine. The protagonist remarked that he truly had not expected that the portion of half-saint power he had given his disciple last time, she had actually saved some of it. Miaoling was holding her ground in the battle, but complained that it would never end, and that she was reaching her limit. Suddenly, her earring shattered, and an overwhelming power began to emanate from her body. Mihu could not believe how this was possible. She had a vision of herself being defeated and realized that something was coming from behind her. All the attacks were blocked, and they shouted that with the ancestors of the 3 sects present, they would succeed. They said they needed to support Wentian first. Miaoling tried to ask what was happening, but the ancestors interrupted her, saying that now she could leave the rest to them. While the world was collapsing in battle, the protagonist returned to his warehouse on Hidden Sword Mountain. Xiaoru asked why he suddenly needed to come back to get something. The protagonist explained that he had a premonition that he would have more time to show off later. Meanwhile, the battle was becoming increasingly intense, and even the 3 talents formation was used, the Great Sword of Myriad Worlds. The elders were fighting with everything they had to defeat the Demon Lord. However, the Demon Lord said it was the same old trick from 300 years ago. With the breath of destruction, the attacks collided and a massive explosion occurred, sending everyone flying. But the Demon Lord took on his true form and blocked the attack with a single finger, saying they were not too bad, since they even managed to break his sedan chair. However, it was a pity they were still a bit short of defeating him. Seeing that no one could stop him anymore, he declared that now he would reach the Emperor Realm and attacked Miaoling. The sect leader shouted for her to be careful, but she had nothing left to do and simply accepted that it was over. Yet at that exact moment, a hand emerged from the center of her chest, blocking the Demon Lord's attack. Miaoling, trembling in pain, cursed her master. He asked what had happened to her for her to be in such a state. She questioned why he had not announced his arrival, because he should try it himself to see how much that hurt. The protagonist says that the demon just asked a question and that he will answer it, introducing himself as Venerable Jian Lai, the protector of Kunlun. But Miaoling remains irritated with him, saying that changing the subject is going too far. The Demon Lord bursts into laughter, saying that presenting himself as a protector is nothing but a joke, because today he will crush everything there since no one can stop him. He tries to attack but realizes something has gone wrong, and asks how that is possible since the protagonist easily pierced his skin, cutting off one of his arms. Qin Tian looks at his opponent and says that, beloved by all and blooming with joy, the lid of a coffin shall open, the supreme sword of life and death, asking whether he has never heard of it before and whether he wants to know more. However, the demon lord tells him to stop pretending, asking what supreme sword of life and death he is talking about, since that is merely an emperor-level sword. The protagonist asks whether he truly believes that, because if so, then he will show him another strike. The demon lord reinforces his skin, but the protagonist's attack is so powerful that even with the reinforcement, it completely shatters his defense and destroys his arm, causing massive devastation. Qin Tian asks whether the fight is already over, because like this, it is no fun. The demon lord, who was once a giant and fearsome dragon, is now being treated like a small hatchling. Wentian goes to Miaoling and asks if she is alright. She says yes and asks her leader whether it is already over. Wentian replies that it is almost finished. However, what she truly wants to know is who that person is, since she just saw him send a saint demon flying with a single strike. Miaoling begins to say that he is her, but stops mid-sentence, thinking that judging by her master's attire, he clearly does not want to be recognized. So she changes her answer, saying that he is probably some contingency plan left behind by ancestor Jiang, and that her master found and activated it. Wentian says that would be wonderful, because if that is really the case, then this war should end quickly. Miaoling cannot believe how easily her leader accepted that explanation. The demon lord, though injured, has not yet been completely defeated. He starts to smile, saying he truly underestimated the protagonist and that sword sect. His body begins to regenerate as he shouts that this feeling is something strange and uses the dragon's secret technique. Another explosion erupts, drawing everyone's attention as they ask what is happening, because a powerful aura has appeared. The demon lord stands up again and laughs, saying that thanks to the protagonist, he truly came close to death. But now, with his power just below the emperor realm, he is invincible, so he must repay his great benefactor. The two women cannot believe that the demon lord is even stronger than before, since he has now reached the 3rd level. Miaoling wonders whether her master can really compete against something that powerful. Convinced of his victory, the demon lord declares that with the help of the Ice Phoenix bloodline, he will become the new demon emperor and rule all demons. And as he releases his overwhelming power, he tells the sword sect to choose how they wish to die. But in the blink of an eye, he is struck. The protagonist's attack is so fast that the demon lord is confused and asks what is happening. Still not understanding what occurred, he says he has finally advanced to the 3rd level, but his body collapses to the ground and his head separates from it. The protagonist remarks that originally he wanted to have a good fight with the demon lord, but ended up getting bored since he talks too much. With the death of the supreme leader of the demons, the war is officially over. The demons fall into ruin, and the demon emperors are captured, having witnessed the saint demon's ridiculous defeat. The protagonist uses Gaara's gourd to store the demon lord's corpse, since the body of a golden dragon in the saint realm is a great treasure. Miaoling approaches him, and the protagonist tells her that he will head back first. She asks whether he is not leaving as well, but with a frightening look he says no, because she needs to wait. She asks what he means, but the protagonist returns to where he came from, making her tremble again in anger and pain. Wentian asks her whether Venerable Zhenlai has already left, but distracted she asks who her leader is referring to. Wentian explains that she means the person who just helped them, since she barely had the chance to thank him. Moreover, she mentions that those little things are getting bigger and bigger. Sometime later, back at the peak, inside the alchemy room, the protagonist is placing everything into the cauldron. The little fox was already getting bored, because her master had been inside the alchemy room for almost half a day, and her boredom was so great that she had started talking to the birds nearby. Suddenly, she heard someone calling her. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw it was Miaoling. She asked why the fox was sleeping there. Xiaoru hugged Miaoling, thanking her for finally coming back, and explained that the master had been inside the alchemy room for a long time. Miaoling asked if she had seen correctly and noticed a bit of smoke coming out from under the door, and soon a bad feeling followed. Another explosion erupted inside the alchemy room. Not knowing what was happening, the little fox shouted, asking whether Hidden Sword Peak was under attack. But Miaoling explained that the master had probably caused another explosion while practicing alchemy. She said they first needed to blow the smoke away, and they quickly dispersed it. Qin Tian stepped out from the rubble, shouting that he had finally succeeded. The system announced that the sacred dragon source item had been completed, and that the reward was the Chongming flower. That night, the two were changing clothes. Xiaoru asked what kind of strange outfits those were. Miaoling said she did not know, but compared to the clothes the master had given her before, these were much more comfortable. The little fox complained that the clothes were too tight. Miaoling said they would get used to it. Suddenly he appeared and looked at them, asking whether they were ready because the night of cultivation was about to begin, but he was struck by a powerful weapon capable of seriously injuring a man if used wisely. With everything prepared, the two went with him to a small cabin outdoors. As a true master concerned about his disciples, the protagonist prepared himself and used the great precision desolate heaven finger, asking her to observe him at a frequency of 99 times per second and to send her body and mind to him. On Miaoling, he used the Six Paths reincarnation fist, and her fists would become like a super machine gun. With that, she would be able to strengthen her muscles, blood vessels, and bones at a frequency of 100 times per second. He focused and began to accelerate, and with the proper pressure of his fingers, he started to massage and rub until reaching a crucial point in the massage. He shouted that her whole body was reacting and said that was enough, because this was a heavenly accomplishment. The two felt the pressure in their bodies and began to cry out, breathing heavily, asking why this was happening. Half an hour earlier, the two had struck the protagonist, saying they would not do such a thing, and he had asked why it was impossible. They said that everything about massage improving the absorption of medicinal liquids was a lie, and that he was acting like a pervert, so there was no chance they would agree. Qin Tian said they were judging a noble person by their own petty standards. He explained that with their current cultivation, they could not fully absorb the essence of golden dragon blood in the medicinal liquid, which was why they needed a little extra help. He asked whether the fox did not want to catch up to him quickly so she could surpass him and nullify their contract. He also said Miaoling had always wanted to improve her cultivation rapidly, and this was a great opportunity. The two were eventually persuaded but warned him not to try any tricks, and only then would they agree to try. Back in the present, only the two girls' cries could be heard. The little fox asked him to go a bit slower. Miaoling was also shouting at her master that he was going too fast, but he told them to endure just a little longer because he was reaching his final movement. And with the fingers of God, he struck the critical point. The two told him not to do it, but a great spiritual pressure filled the place. The protagonist took a deep breath, saying he had finally finished the massage. The two said he was nothing but a scoundrel, and the fox, with part of her body slightly sore, said he had only taken advantage and played with them. Qin Tian said she could insult him as a person, but not the skills he possessed, and that now it was time for the next step, saying they would witness a miracle. Once again, he ended up getting hit, but in the end, the two realized everything was true, because the speed of absorbing and converting spiritual energy had increased several times compared to before. Slightly bruised, the protagonist said he had never lied in his life. The system announced that Miaoling had just reached the half-saint realm, and that the host's reward was an increase in cultivation aptitude to saint grade, and a 50% increase in login rewards. The little fox apologized to her master, saying she had been wrong to accuse him unfairly. Miaoling then had an idea and spoke with Xiaoru. While the protagonist was relaxing in his bath, the two approached and hugged him, covering his eyes. And the rest must be told on another platform because here on YouTube it cannot be shown. After the great battle of the demonic race, Qin Tian and his two disciples were sleeping. Even before the rooster began to crow, a scream was calling for the protagonist's help. He wakes up and asks who is disturbing his dreams so early in the morning. Xiaoru, still sleepy, asks Miaoling what is wrong, and she replies that apparently someone is looking for the master. In the middle of the forest, the screams calling for the protagonist could still be heard from very far away. Qin Tian and Miaoling go there and realize that it is the princess who was screaming. He asks her to stop shouting. When she sees that it is him, she becomes happy upon realizing that he managed to find her. Qin Tian says he did not expect to find her there. His disciple asks the master if they already knew each other. He explains that the story was like this, and then that happened because of this, and then because of that. The princess adds that it was exactly like that, and finally in that way. This explanation was very detailed, and she managed to understand exactly how they had met. With shining eyes and begging for help, the princess says that Qin Tian had saved her life before and asks if he could help her again. As she kneels and bows, she says that she would very much like to become one of his disciples. She explains that this decision is being made because her father intends to abdicate the throne, and her younger brother, to prevent her from competing for the throne, wants her to marry an idiot because she is beautiful, and once she marries and enters that idiot's family, the two kingdoms will become allies forever. And if a great power does not support her, then she will not be able to escape that horrible fate. Thinking deeply about this matter, she wishes to become a disciple of the benefactor who saved her in order to have a chance to control her own destiny. Miaoling looks at the master to see what action he will take. After thinking about it for a while, he points out that he can accept her as a registered disciple, but she must agree to one condition. The princess becomes excited and asks what condition that would be. He explains that he wants her kingdom's national flower, known as the Chongming flower, She becomes a little worried and explains that each flower requires a large amount of resources, time, and manpower to be cultivated, and normally only a new emperor can obtain one after succession to help break through realms. Therefore, she cannot agree to that condition. The protagonist says that it is very simple to resolve this issue because he will help her become the successor, and after that, she can give the flower to him, and asks if she agrees. Both his disciple and the princess are impressed. Even with a little hesitation, she feels confidence in the words of her new master and agrees, promising that she will certainly do her best to help him obtain that flower. With everything settled, he says that from then on she will be his registered disciple and asks her to accompany him. And as soon as the training begins, only screams could be heard. Qin Tian questions why Yilian was running away. The princess kept running as fast as possible, saying that this is nonsense, because if she does not run, she will die right there. The protagonist continues being harsh with her, questioning what kind of expression that is and why there are tears in her eyes. Yilian, completely desperate, says that she is no longer learning and does not want to be the successor anymore, and begins begging for her life. However, the protagonist continues acting harshly and shouts that her tears cannot help her control her own destiny. In addition, she's not allowed to run in his direction. She refuses, screaming desperately that she cannot. The protagonist insists that she stop running, but frightened, she says she cannot because that can really kill a person. Xiaoru asks her older sister if that kind of training the master is giving is really useful. Miaoling just watches, saying that no one knows what is truly good. During the night, only the whisper of a woman could be heard. The prince was on top of the girl, asking if she had not said that she would give everything for him. She screamed the word save, but with tears in his eyes, the prince asked her not to blame him, because the fault for all of that lies with that old immortal and his older sister. They were the ones who condemned her. This is Ming Guanjian, the prince of the Chongming kingdom. The girl still tried to save her own life, but it was of no use. After eliminating the girl, the prince tells the sect master that he agreed to his request and that now he should fulfill his promise. Suddenly, one of the windows opens and a dark energy begins to enter the room. A red-haired man appears telling the prince that he kept his word, and because of that, the demonic sect will spare no effort and promises that he will help him ascend the throne. He is Mo Tianlun, master of the demonic sect. Meanwhile, on the protagonist's peak, Xiaoru was excited, saying that if she could use magic, then they could not blame her for intimidating. Miaoling defends the attack and asks Yilian to act. Xiaoru gets angry because no one had said it would be two against her. Yilian uses her self-sacrifice impact ability. The little fox dodges in fright, saying that if that hit her, it would be her end, because no one uses their ultimate move directly. Miaoling asks Xiaoru to use self-sacrifice impact again. Their training continued, and the protagonist only watched while Miaoling encouraged Yilian. He thinks that scene looks a little familiar, remembering the battle with that thing that looked like a pocket monster. Xiaoru was already out of energy and asked them to wait a bit and take a break. Miaoling praises Yilian, saying that after the master's training a few days ago, she improved a lot. She agrees, however, she points out that she would not like to go through that kind of special training again. The little fox says that at least now she does not focus only on escaping. While they were talking, Xiaoru hears a noise and tells Yilian that her stomach is vibrating. Yilian explains that that is her kingdom's communication device. She explains that the Father Emperor was worried about her, so he gave that to communicate. As soon as she uses the device, she realizes that it is the Father Emperor calling remotely through the communication token. When she answers, the father is completely terrified. She asks what happened, but he only shouts for her not to return and suddenly is attacked from behind, leaving the three shocked. Guanjian appears in the transmission and the princess screams for the Father Emperor, asking him to respond immediately and not let anything happen to him. Guanjian tells his sister that the Father Emperor has already been eliminated and that she herself is to blame for all of this. Horrified by the situation, she says that her brother is lying. He asks why she thinks he would do that, because he was about to be named the new emperor. The Father Emperor discovered that she joined the Kunlun sword sect and truly wanted to crown her as the new empress. To obtain the throne, he had no choice but to eliminate him, and it was exactly at that point that she made her mistake. Upon hearing this explanation, Yilian begins to lose control, screaming at her brother and saying that regardless of what happens, she will eliminate him. However, he questions why she is making such a fuss, because the one who should be afraid is her, and that she should blame herself, since if she had obediently married someone, everything would be fine. Tianlun appears saying that he did a good job and that, as agreed, the demonic sect will carry out a sacrifice in Chongming City. He asks if Your Majesty will go back on his word. The Prince Emperor replies that he will not, because they are all great contributors, and now the citizens of the entire city are under his command. Miao Ling sees Tianlun and realizes it is him. Yilian questions her brother about how he had the courage to conspire with the demonic sect, and what he is truly planning with that, but Guanjian simply destroys the communicator, ending the call. The princess does not accept it and shouts for them to come back immediately and explain what is happening, because she does not know what else he is planning to do with the people of that kingdom. Zhao Ru tells the princess that she knows very well how she is feeling, however she needs to control herself and not panic. The princess asks how she should do that because everyone there heard that the demonic sect wants to sacrifice the people of that kingdom. Xiao Ru points to the master, saying that in a situation like this, to save the entire city and defeat Tianlun, who is a half-saint, they must trust in the master's power. The princess ends up agreeing and calls her master, who is eating a delicious watermelon, and he says that it does not seem very problematic. Meanwhile, in the city, people were already trying to run to the gate. They said that if they could seize the opportunity and escape, that would be great, so they needed to hurry. But suddenly, they are captured and dragged into a formation with a red liquid. They question what that is and shout that they do not want to die there, but even begging for their lives, they are completely pulled inside. Tianlun, who is behind all of this, points out that after the sacrifice in that city, he finally managed to advance. Suddenly, another person arrives, congratulating him for finally reaching the Saint Realm, because that is what he always desired, and now he is qualified to engage in a deeper level of cooperation with them. In the royal palace, Yilian bursts the door open, shouting for her brother to appear immediately. But when she looks inside, she is surprised. Because he no longer looked like a person, he had been completely transformed and was asking his sister to save him. She becomes desperate, and Tianlun appears, saying that he finally arrived, because it had been a long time since he and Qintian had seen each other. The protagonist asks what Tianlun did. The master of the demonic sect explains that the prince wanted to increase his strength and therefore sought their help. So he used a secret technique to fuse Guanjian and his brothers, helping him increase his power. One of the heads starts laughing, saying that the sister would no longer be able to save them. Tianlun points out that Yilian put a lot of pressure on her brother after joining the Kunlun sect. The princess, completely enraged by all of that, charges at the opponent, saying that she will eliminate him right there and now, but she is blocked by a barrier. The protagonist asks who the bald man holding a book is, but the bald man replies that before introducing himself, he would like to change the environment a bit. The book begins to flip, and a very strong light is emitted. Then everyone disappears and appears in the middle of a desert. Xiao Ru starts shouting because sand got into her eyes. At some point in the desert, Tianlun tells his saint that he never thought they would meet again and supposes that she missed him. Miao Ling replies that she also missed him, and, with a smile on her face, points out that she would like to be able to tear him into 1,000 pieces. The bald man holding the book tells the protagonist that he would like to introduce himself first and says that his name is Wenna, a disciple of the Saint realm of the Baldi cult. In addition, he is a clone of the Book of Space, one of the 9 divine books, and his true form is currently rooted with his family, the Qin family, in a myriad of universes. The protagonist is a little confused by the explanation and asks what he means. The book minister tries to explain, but the protagonist interrupts him, saying that now he remembers because he almost forgot. He recalls that night those 2 strange dolls said something strange, and if he remembers correctly, it was, "Son, we are going out to have fun with the servants. Do not worry about us and be careful with the book." Now he understands that this was what his mother meant by being careful with the book, because he thought it would just be another intelligence test to bother him and make him capable of giving up. Apparently his father and mother hid many things, and the next time they meet, he will certainly make them tell all the secrets. The protagonist asks what exactly his family did, and also questions whether he intends to deal with the family. The bald man explains that all of this began in the myriad of universes. After a great explosion that swept through the infinite void, countless universes were born. To prevent these newly born and disordered universes from collapsing, the 9 divine books appeared. Each of them maintained the order of the countless universes, allowing them to develop peacefully, but occasionally variables emerged, such as the protagonist and his parents. The bald man points out that the protagonist disrupts order, leading the myriad of universes to destruction, and therefore they must eliminate variables like Qin Tian. The false Saitama begins absorbing the energy of the universe and explains that now that they have become one, they are invincible, and they must eliminate the protagonist for the peace of the countless universes, and to remove the curse of baldness from the Baldi cult. He politely asks the protagonist to accept dying by his hands. Qin Tian is a little confused, seeing that the book turned into a cape, thinking that this is already going too far. However, he shouts, saying that it is very cool, and asks what kind of magic that is. The false Kuririn prepares to attack. The protagonist also becomes excited about the situation and says that although that magic is very cool, it is a pity that it will be completely destroyed. His attacks create such great pressure that the waters around begin to evaporate. Wena is at the spiritual movement stage, but since the protagonist is a variable, he already imagined that he was hiding his cultivation. However, he did not expect Qin Tian to be in the saint realm. The protagonist says that being praised by a bald head brings him no kind of happiness or satisfaction. The book that had transformed into a cape questions why the protagonist cannot simply accept death, because only his existence will cause the entire world to collapse, and his 3 disciples, along with billions more people, will die because of him. Qin Tian points out that he is not a fool and that this is just the one-sided story told by the billiard ball head, so he will not believe it. The cape says that if that is the case, there is no other choice, asking Wena to use the power of the divine book and finish it as quickly as possible. The bald man replies that it is no problem because he will end it before the protagonist can react. Concentrating a gigantic force, his aura begins to change. Qin Tian realizes that the opponent just entered the Emperor realm, and before he could do anything, he is struck by a blow. Quickly, the bald man appears in front of him and lands another attack, throwing him to the bottom of the sea. Confident, he states that it is finally over. In another place, a great explosion happens. The Prince Emperor was laughing while fighting his sister, saying that she stayed at the peak training for so long, but her skills improved almost nothing, so she should just accept death. The princess felt pressured since her brother's attack speed was very fast and she could not get close. Guanjian continues mocking the situation, asking if that is all she has to offer. Xiaoru notices an opening approaching from behind, but when she looks, she sees the Father Emperor's face there. He asks what she is doing, and she shouts that there is another behind. The father then advances to attack her, hitting her directly. The princess becomes worried. The prince comments that the father did a good job. Even trapped in that situation, the emperor shouts for his daughter to run immediately because she must live. Hearing her father's voice, tears begin to stream from her eyes. Gathering all the strength he possessed at that moment, he keeps shouting for her to run immediately, asking why she returned. She remembers when she was afraid and her father finally found her. The emperor was punishing her brother, saying that it was all his fault because he used a mask to scare his sister, and therefore he should apologize. Seeing that his daughter was still scared, the emperor knelt down and said that she was very shy for a princess. However, she did not need to worry because he would protect her until the end of his life, so she no longer needed to be afraid. Because of these memories, she could not reason correctly. The prince says that that old man talks too much. In the past, while a war was happening, the emperor had ordered the princess to leave the palace to avoid danger and asked her to wait until he finished the war to return. She refused to leave her father, but he ordered the guards to take her away immediately. Now, the same story was repeating. He was shouting with all his strength for her to leave, but Yilian states that this time she will not run away. Suddenly, a large amount of energy begins to come out of Guanjian, and with a smile on his face, he says that even in the face of death, the father was still worried about the sister. So it would have been better if he had allowed himself to be absorbed. Yilian advances, saying that she was always protected by her father, but this time it is her turn to protect the Father Emperor. The bald man notices that there is something at the bottom of the sea. Suddenly, a whale appears, and from inside it, Qin Tian emerges. He says that that was truly terrifying, and that if it were not for his superior abilities, he would have lost his life. But now, it is his turn to play a little. He opens a small portal and pulls his sword from inside, known as the Sword of Life and Death. The albino monk comments that that is quite surprising, but even a weapon will not be a match for him. The protagonist replies that the only way to find out is to try. The bald man surrounds himself with divine power because no emperor-level weapon could break his defenses. The cape shouts, calling him an idiot, and tells him to dodge immediately. However, it was already too late and the protagonist's attack hits him. Qin Tian asks who said that she was just an ordinary weapon. Wena asks how that is possible. The cape states that unfortunately he was careless. And that is the power of mortal stillness of destruction. Even after defeating the opponent, the protagonist thinks that this is the first time he encountered someone who made him use all his strength, and that perhaps he should strengthen himself a little more instead of relying only on weapons. The host's desire to become stronger has been detected, and the path of mortal refinement can be initiated. The path of mortal refinement is basically temporarily sealing spiritual power. The heart in the mortal world is awakened, and true power appears. Meanwhile, in the middle of the desert, the little fox was already severely injured. The prince laughed, saying that she was overestimated, and asked the father to look, because that is the sister he protected so much. And now she is completely unable to fight, and the successor of the kingdom must be the strongest. So the only person who can inherit the throne is him. Even completely immobilized, the princess still calls for her father. The brother continues mocking, saying that she is crying and asking what else she can do besides cry and run, and that is why he cannot understand why the father wanted to leave the throne to her. Because of that, she is a disgusting person and deserves to be eliminated. Xiaoru gathers the rest of her strength and stands up, aiming at the target. Tianlun tells Miaoling that in that space there are only the two of them and that she will not be able to escape this time. And besides that, no one will be able to save her. The former empress asks if he really thinks she is the same person who could not fight back in the past. The demonic sect only knows how to run away. Tianlun realizes that she has already been in the half-saint realm for a short time. Miaoling advances, saying that now it is time to finish this. But Tianlun states that it is a pity because now he is already in the saint realm. He begins to control the earth, creating 2 dragons. Even so, she dodges all the attacks and continues advancing, firing her strike toward the opponent. However, he uses his evil-faced cultivator ability, releasing a large amount of energy and bringing a monster into reality. Tianlun says that that fight is useless and orders her to obediently return to the demonic sect with him and be the saint. To demonstrate his strength, he attacks, but she manages to cut the blow easily, saying that his saint realm is not very useful. With a smile on his face, he states that she is becoming very arrogant after blocking only 1 move. Miaoling replies that he will know what arrogance is in just 1 strike. He prepares to attack again, saying that she's pretending to be something she is not. The attack this time is devastating and hits her body. However, the body that was hit was only a clone serving as a distraction. She appears behind him, making him surprised and asking how that is possible. Her attack manages to cut in half the monster he had created, causing a great explosion. Xiaoru uses her prison ability, creating a giant fox around the opponent. After that, she activates the technique, making the fox crush Guanjian. However, the attack is not enough to defeat him, but it is enough to free the princess. The little fox asks her to take advantage of the opening, because she can only seal, and the rest must be done by Yilian. The prince panics, shouting for them to release him immediately. Yilian, even trembling with fear, remembers all the training she had with the master until that day. She says that her brother was really right, because in the past she only knew how to run, but now she will never run again. The prince asks if she is making a joke and tells her not to force herself to do something she cannot, reminding her that Guangui and Guangbao are her beloved younger brothers and are in the same body, not to mention the precious father she loves so much, also trapped there. However, none of these words are enough to make her hesitate. After attacking, she states that her brother is wrong. Upon being hit, the little prince says that that is impossible and refuses to die there because he still wants to be emperor. However, the fight was already decided and his body begins to disintegrate. The princess looks back and says goodbye to the father emperor. Tianlun, who was also on the verge of defeat, says that that is impossible and asks how she managed to advance to the half-saint realm in less than 100 years, and why her half-saint realm is stronger than his saint realm. Miaoling explains that the strength he achieved through methods such as sacrifice is like a castle in the air, precarious and about to collapse. Therefore, his strength in the saint realm is basically insignificant compared to hers, a cultivator who reached the half-saint realm through her own effort. He refuses to listen, telling her to shut up, and repeats several times that he is in the saint realm. Like a desperate rat, he tries to attack her, saying that he will absorb her into a cauldron to reach the emperor realm. In that way, he will be able to become the #1 demonic emperor in the entire world. Miaoling only smiles because she knows that victory was already decided. In the blink of an eye, she appears behind him, and suddenly his body splits into 2. While Tianlun was lying on the ground, she approaches, asking him not to worry, because he will not be alone on his journey. And before delivering the final blow, she promises that soon the demonic sect and the evil path will descend to accompany him. As soon as everyone is defeated, that subspace begins to crack. The little fox realizes that the artificial subspace has begun to collapse. Yilian becomes desperate, asking what will happen to them. Xiaoru explains that normally they will be teleported. The 2 dolls who had previously appeared to the protagonist appear again. The male doll says that it has been quite some time since they last saw each other, but the woman asks him to stop talking nonsense and get straight to the point. The man says that if he found that fantastic artifact, it means he came into contact with the divine tome, and successfully resolving this great problem means that the puppets will be activated to help him gather the power of the divine tome. The protagonist is surprised to see that the divine tome was being restored. The puppets point out that he probably has many questions and promise to answer all of them as soon as they return. But now he needs to cultivate with full focus and strive with all his might to reach the Emperor realm. Qin Tian holds the book, saying that all of that is very magical, and agrees that he will ascend to the Emperor realm and then wait for them. Sometime later, back in the kingdom, everyone was gathered greeting the new Empress Yilian. She thanks everyone for their presence and respect, and wishes long life to the people of the kingdom. When she looks up, she sees her master and her two older sisters leaving. She remembers that not long ago she had warned that she could not return with them. Her two older sisters hug her, saying that a nation cannot be without a ruler, and that her staying there for the people of the kingdom is more important than anything else. So she should not feel sad because they promise to visit her when they have free time. However, Yilian almost cannot breathe from Miao Ling's tight embrace. The protagonist also says goodbye to her, saying that if she suffers any injustice within that kingdom, she only needs to look for any of them, because Hidden Sword Peak will always be her home, and they will always be her family. She becomes emotional upon hearing that and asks if it is true. Qin Tian replies that yes, and thus she happily says goodbye. Miao Ling asks the master that now that they have the flower he wanted so much, what will be the next destination? The protagonist laughs and says that now they will go to the Forest of Divine Concealment. During the days Miao Ling spent helping Yilian rebuild the Imperial Palace, he was exploring all the places and finally discovered that someone saw traces of the Holy Spirit fruit. The two question whether he was really only looking for the fruit, because they do not quite believe that, but anyway, they agree to go to the Forest of Divine Concealment. In the middle of the forest, a strong storm was taking over the place, and at the center, a small flower was guarded by some snakes. The Forest of Divine Concealment is a forbidden area on the eastern continent of Juzhou, with a territorial area exceeding 5 million square kilometers, which makes it completely colossal. The protagonist does not know how they will manage to find the Holy Spirit fruit. Miao Ling has an idea, saying that they should split up to search a larger area and meet again right there at sunset. The fox agrees, saying it is a great idea, and without objections, the protagonist also agrees. With that, each follows a different path, agreeing to return at sunset. The result was as expected. Night had already fallen, and the protagonist was setting up camp. They searched all day and could not find any trace of the Holy Spirit fruit. However, he was very happy because the smell of the food was great, and that was already expected of himself. Now he is one step closer to being able to cook glowing food. Suddenly, he notices movement in a bush. Xiao Ru jumps out of it toward him while shouting. Because of that, the meat is thrown far away and falls at Miao Ling's feet, who puts it back on the fire. Xiao Ru was hugging Qin Tian so tightly that he could barely breathe. After things calm down a bit, they all sit around the campfire. Qin Tian notices that something is wrong and questions what happened between them. He comments that one is cold, like the Ice Queen, and the other panicked, as if she were being chased by a mad dog. The two begin to speak at the same time but stop simultaneously. Qin Tian asks Xiao Ru to speak first. She says that in fact she saw people from the Imperial Alliance at the edge of the forest, and that made her panic. The protagonist realizes that he never asked why she was being chased by the Imperial Alliance. She thinks for a moment and begins to explain that when the Great Liang Empire and the Scarlet Sky Empire declared war, both ended up being conquered by other nations. Before the war, she met the emperors of both sides in a secret realm. Therefore, the Imperial Alliance slandered her, claiming that she instigated the war and that everything was her fault. Thus, specialists from the Imperial Alliance under the command of the Alliance leader, Emperor Tian, began to pursue her to prevent such a disaster from happening again. Miao Ling becomes confused and says that Xiao Ru is the Imperial Princess of Qingqiu, questioning why they did not intervene. She explains that this happened because of the Imperial Alliance's investigation. The entire central continent wants to see her eliminated. Faced with that general pressure, Qingqiu also cannot protect her, and unless they find evidence to prove the Imperial Alliance's slander against her, there is nothing they can do. The protagonist says that he is her master and protector, so he tells her not to worry because he will protect her from any threat and clear her name. Xiao Ru jumps on him again, thanking him for being such a good person, but the master tells her not to go around issuing good person certificates to him. Now that he understood what happened to one of his disciples, it is time to know what happened to the other. Miao Ling explains that while she was walking, she encountered two people who were questioning what Colonel Kun Yin was looking for by bringing people from the kingdom to the Forest of Divine Concealment. In addition, they had not received any information about what to search for, but they had no choice, because military orders are like mountains. Qin Tian smiles and says that they have lived together for a long time, so Miao Ling knows them too well to know that they would not betray her. Therefore, he wants to know what truly happened. Even apprehensive, she agrees, and says that in fact she is a reincarnated person, and in her past life she was the Empress of Cruelty. Xiao Ru is surprised, but Qin Tian shows no reaction. This draws their attention, so he notices and pretends to be impressed, saying that she is the reincarnation of the Empress of Cruelty. Miao Ling tells the master that it is fine and that he does not need to pretend, because she will not question how he managed to guess her true identity. She explains that in her past life, Emperor Kun Yuan, the old ancestor Wu Shu, and the old ancestor Sui Yu, 3 specialists at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm, joined forces to explore a forbidden zone of life. However, they ambushed her and trapped her in a previously arranged formation. The 3 refined her alive using the formation, and the main objective was her low-grade Emperor weapon. Therefore, even if she did not seek revenge, they would deal with her if they met again. The protagonist states that this revenge must be carried out and that no matter the difficulty, he will personally help her. To comfort her, he hands her some meat. However, he becomes confused and asks whether a low-grade Emperor weapon was really that important, asking if she was not at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm. Xiaoru explains that only those in the Emperor realm possess imperial weapons. Many great powers have several specialists in the Emperor realm, but only one imperial weapon. The reason imperial weapons are so scarce is that Zhuzhou does not have suitable materials for forging, and, in addition, lacks people capable of forging imperial weapons. Qin Tian thinks that if only the system would teach him how to forge an imperial weapon, he would be completely prepared. Meanwhile, still during the night, in another place, some people notice that a purple energy comes from the east. A secret realm of a specialist at the peak of the Emperor realm appeared in the mountains on the border between the eastern and central continents. A person explains that the space of the secret realm can only accommodate cultivators below the Saint realm, and all half-saint prodigies of the Shenlin Empire can proceed to obtain treasures. He is from the Shenlin Empire called Lan Yangsheng, currently at the 1st level of the Emperor realm. Jian Wuchen from the Valley of the Sword God is also at the 1st level of the Emperor realm. It is said that the Emperor realm's secret realm appeared, and all half-saint disciples of the Valley of the Sword God can proceed to the border mountains. In the Hyoshan Empire, the Ice Empress Zhuan, at the 3rd level of the Emperor realm, orders that the half-saint prodigies of the Hyoshan Empire must go to the border mountains to have some fun. Meanwhile, in the middle of the forest, a great explosion was happening. Colonel Kuan Yin was ordering the members of the Imperial Alliance to disappear, because the soldiers of the Kun Yuan Empire were the first to discover the Holy Spirit fruit. But one of the Alliance members asked where the soldiers are because it is somewhat strange since they all seem dead. Those are the half-saints of the Imperial Alliance, the 3 Wuyan brothers, Wuding and Wuxi, who will take that treasure, but the colonel refuses to give up, saying that it is a gift for the great emperor. The brothers say that coincidentally the leader of the Imperial Alliance also wants that flower. While they were arguing because of that, the protagonist only watched. He orders his 2 disciples to attack immediately. They stop the fight, and the colonel questions who she is to attack a colonel of the empire. Miao Ling begins to smile and introduces herself, saying that she is the person who will eliminate him. One of the 3 brothers says that they are from the Imperial Alliance and that petty rats need to retreat immediately. Xiaoru does not care and says that she will be responsible for defeating the Imperial Alliance. The 3 brothers try to attack her, but she manages to defend against the 3 of them. Meanwhile, the protagonist goes to the Holy Spirit fruit, saying that it is finally his, but he notices something. He sees some bubbles coming out of the swamp and asks what that is. Suddenly, a huge beast appears, surprising everyone. The brothers suspect that that is the treasure guardian demonic beast. While everyone was frightened, the only question that came to the protagonist's mind was, could that snake become food? The demonic beast tries to attack Miao Ling, who dodges and counterattacks. However, she is surprised, since the Emperor Weapon's attack caused no damage at all. The colonel was the second target. The 3 brothers are astonished, and the protagonist just keeps looking at that snake. The snake also keeps staring at him, not understanding what was happening. Suddenly, another head of the snake attacks, taking 2 of the 3 brothers. Wuding, who is the only survivor, screams desperately for his brothers. Miaoling realizes that that is not an ordinary snake demon. However, something even more surprising impresses her. Qin Tian had tamed that snake. He explains that he realized she was very afraid of him, so he tried to contract her. However, he did not expect her to be so obedient and asks if she did not find that very cool, but Miao Ling asks what he was doing before. Wuding tries to understand how a single person was able to control that treasure guardian demonic beast. Qin Tian removes the sword from his head and asks his disciple how she can simply throw such a big sword around. She shouts back, saying that this time she will really eliminate him. Wuding, who is still confused, asks who that guy really is. The protagonist looks at him and asks if he really is not going to leave and orders the snake to attack him. Wuding simply runs away, asking for help. Meanwhile, Qin Tian keeps looking at the fruit, saying that something very strange is happening since he cannot remember. Xiaoru, who is hiding, trembling in fear of the snake, is surprised when Qin Tian shows her his new pet, saying that the name is Yamata no Orochi, but her fear was so great that she was stunned. shouting for him not to come any closer. The protagonist asks if she does not find her cute. However, he did not expect her to be so afraid of snakes. Miao Ling tries to understand this logic, saying that the brother they faced last time also had a snake body, so why is she so afraid now? But Xiaoru becomes confused, asking if that is not a two-headed snake. However, she concludes that snakes are still more frightening. After so long back at Aurora Sword Peak, the two were eating ice cream. Xiaoru asks if Miao Ling thinks it will explode this time. She says yes, since every time it explodes. The two were looking at the alchemy room and suddenly another explosion happens. But they were no longer surprised since it happened every time. The protagonist celebrated because he finally succeeded with the rejuvenation pill. Taking it below the third level of the Saint Realm can increase cultivation by 1 minor realm. It is only effective the first time it is consumed. The two say that he really is amazing, praising him for creating a great item, but first he should change clothes. While he was changing clothes, he asked them to go back and refine the pill, and afterward he needs her to go to a place. Miao Ling asks where that place is, but the protagonist says it is a secret and that when she arrives there, she will know. She thinks he is very mysterious, but he hands the pill to her, telling her to go back and consume it. After that, she needs to focus on refining it, and once she finishes, they will meet. In addition, he explains that consuming it below the third level of the Saint Realm can increase cultivation by 1 minor realm. Therefore, he cannot help her with this refinement. Miao Ling becomes delighted, asking if that is really for her and if it is okay for her to use it. Xiaoru had shining eyes of envy, and the protagonist says that it is for her and asks if she does not want it. Miao Ling accepts without hesitation and gives him a kiss on the cheek as thanks. Excited, she says that she will withdraw first to cultivate. He becomes very happy, seeing that she's more proactive and perhaps is liking him. While he was there, enjoying his moment, Xiaoru was pouting, saying that she also wanted some. Sometime later, the protagonist was holding another pill in his hand because he had thought that the little fox meant that she wanted something else. But it turns out she also wanted the immortal pill. Qintian gets ready and asks her if she is ready because he is going to throw it. With her tail wagging from side to side, he tells her to open her mouth and throws it to her. She jumps and manages to catch it and is amazed by the taste. The protagonist looks at her tail and hugs it, saying that it is very cute. Xiaoru feels something in her body and he says that it is exactly as he imagined, comfortable and beautiful. The little fox says that her master is nothing but a pervert and asks if he does not know that the tails of the Fox clan cannot be touched randomly, but the protagonist kept holding it, saying that he did not know that and asking what is wrong with letting him touch it a few times. She explains that only a partner can touch the tail of someone from the Fox clan, and how will she get married like that in the future? However, he ends up falling asleep on the tail, saying that it is fine because he will support her in the future. The next day, the protagonist was making a prayer to all kinds of possible gods, asking them to appear, and upon confirming, asks all these gods to appear to him. A system congratulates the host for logging in and informs that his level 13 has been reached. With the spiritual collection account, he can replenish the user's spiritual energy, but he becomes irritated since he did not manage to receive anything good. Miao Ling appears and asks her master what he is doing. He says that he needs her to go to the Secret Realm, a secret realm with Emperor Realm restriction. Secret realms with Emperor restrictions are left behind by major Emperor Realm specialists before their deaths. A secret realm to find a successor. Inside such a secret realm, in addition to inheritance of cultivation techniques and martial arts, there are also Emperor-level spiritual medicines, and even Imperial weapons can be found, although the probability is very small. A disciple says that his master is very wise for knowing all that. Another person points out that according to legend, this secret realm may have been left by the peak specialist of the third-level Emperor realm 30,000 years ago, the great Emperor Gu Yang, and that if one can find the great Emperor's inheritance in the secret realm, one will also become a very strong individual. But his companion tells him to stop daydreaming, because they, solitary cultivators, have no chance at all. Since if he looks around, he will see that the 3 most powerful forces around Two Realms Mountain have arrived, so they, solitary cultivators, have no chance to compete. His companion ends up agreeing, saying that all of them are prodigies at the 3rd level of the Half-Saint Realm, personally taught by peak great emperors, and even fought against the Saint Realm without defeat. Prince Lan Feng of the Shenlun Empire says that he did not expect them to also be there. Mu Qingting, daughter of Empress Xuan, says that if he came there, how could she not? Because this is related to an emperor-level weapon. Jian Baichen of the Valley of the Sword God states that Great Emperor Gu Yang's sword, called Gu Wang Blade, will belong only to the Valley of the Sword God. Lan Feng says that it does not matter and asks them to look behind because it seems that an incredible person has just arrived. Miao Ling approaches, Baichen thinks that the sword intent directed at her is not inferior to his. Qingting also thinks that she has never seen that woman before and asks whether she could be some prodigy from another region. Lan Feng approaches, saying that even with the veil, he can perceive the great beauty she possesses. Qingting warns that acting impulsively like that will not bring good consequences. Miaoling asks what he wants. Lan Feng introduces himself, saying that he is the prince of the Shenlan Empire and asks her to lift the veil. He tries to pull it off, but she dodges and with a simple movement pushes him back. The prince is impressed, seeing that with just one sword movement she managed to break the spiritual energy protecting him and injure his body. People are impressed seeing that she managed to injure the prince of an empire so easily and wonder which force she belongs to, because she could be from the central region or the middle continent. Lan Feng thinks that her cultivation is at the second level of half-saint and that only her sword intent is somewhat stronger, which means that that sword must be extraordinary. Then it must be at least a half-emperor grade weapon, or perhaps even a low-grade emperor weapon. He releases his powers, saying that she injured him, so she needs to leave her sword as compensation, otherwise he will not leave. Does she dare to face the royal bloodline of the Saint-grade royal family of the empire? Miao Ling prepares for battle, saying that he is so eloquent after being outmatched, truly worthy of being the prince of the Shenlan Empire. She dispels her weapon, saying that she does not need any sword to defeat him. He says that her words are very arrogant, so he must show how powerful the prince is. But when trying to strike her, she dodges and touches his abdomen, throwing him heavily to the ground. People cannot believe that the Saint-grade imperial royal bloodline is actually suppressed by another bloodline. The prince becomes even more excited, seeing that her bloodline is very powerful, and that if he can capture her, then both her sword and her bloodline will belong to him. He shouts for them to take that woman down immediately. She points out that only children ask for reinforcements in a fight. A person approaches, saying that unfortunately the prince asked for it and she needs to go with him to the empire immediately. That is Dragon Uncle, protector of the prince of the empire, 3rd level Saint Realm. But when trying to capture her, he realizes something very powerful coming toward him, and with a simple attack is thrown back together with the prince. Dragon asks what that is and whether it is a protector. Miao Ling questions what is wrong, because if there is a protector on one side, there should be one on the other as well. The protagonist tells her that he will not leave there because he can suppress them even from the shadows. Dragon Uncle realizes that the strength is terrifying and tells His Highness that they must retreat for now and make a plan after entering the secret realm. The prince ends up agreeing and says that he will let her go for now. People question why they stopped fighting, because if they continued and ended up injured, there would be 2 fewer to compete. However, one of them says they're wishing for the impossible, and besides, once they enter the secret realm, they need to stay away from those 2 because they will probably fight again. Miao Ling, who is observing, realizes that the prince of the empire and the successor of the Valley of the Sword God reached an agreement. Qingting suddenly appears and greets her, saying her name. Qingting says that she probably already realized that Baichen and Lan Feng joined forces, and to counter them, she would also like to join, asking what Miao Ling thinks about dividing all the items they find equally. Miao Ling agrees with the plan, and soon it is announced that the secret realm is open. Everyone enters immediately and ends up in a desert. They complain that the Great Emperor really liked to make things difficult and actually created an exclusion zone in the secret realm, forcing them to give their all. With great effort, Baichen and Lan Feng reach the entrance of the ancient emperor's city, but some people ended up along the way. As soon as some people enter, the doors close. The disciple tells his master that the door just closed, but he tells the disciple not to worry because they are already inside. Shortly after, the master was running ahead, asking why it ended up like that. His disciple, with a completely strange form, was running behind him, asking why his master was running and if he is not a good disciple. The master arrives at a door but cannot open it. Meanwhile, his disciple keeps telling him to open the door. The master realizes that that secret realm of the Great Emperor is actually a trap. Not only is flying forbidden, but as soon as they entered the city, their magic was also sealed and they were turned into mortals. Suddenly, he notices that the sound has disappeared and wonders if those things have gone away. But when he looks back, he sees several pills. The master realizes they are rejuvenation pills, and that he had not noticed them before while fleeing. But now he realizes that his luck is very good, because that room seems to be especially for storing pills. Looking inside, he sees that there is almost a whole urn full, which means he will become rich. But suddenly his disciple's voice appears again, and he begins to come out from inside the container, telling his master that he finally found him. The disciple keeps coming out of that jar and crawls across the floor, telling his master not to run again and calling him to go straight to hell. Outside, three people were watching as the protagonist approached. Jian Wuchen from the Sword God Valley, Prince Lan Yang from the Shenlin Empire, and Mu Yun from the Hyoshan Empire. He realizes that everyone has already arrived and with a smile on his face says that he had a premonition that the reward the system will give this time will be extraordinary. He takes a look at the system and says that his disciple also needs to speed up her progress. Meanwhile, inside, the four were standing before a statue. A mini protagonist comes out from the middle of its chest, saying that this is very strange and asking if all of them are possessed. He realizes that this is not good at all, because that statue was absorbing the life energy of his disciple and the others. And even while miniature, with a simple strike he manages to destroy the statue's plan, which opens its eyes asking who did that. Everyone begins to regain consciousness and realizes that after they entered the secret realm, they fell into an illusion without noticing. Lan Feng says that that bronze figure absorbed the blood of those deceased people and asks if its plan is to resurrect. Baichen explains that that bronze figure may be the vessel of the deceased Great Emperor, and that this is not a secret realm but was deliberately created by the Great Emperor for resurrection. The statue begins to rise, saying that since everyone discovered it, then everyone will die there. Qingting points out that only the four of them remain, so they need to unite. Lan Feng agrees, saying this is the only way. The statue releases its power, saying that only a few half-saints dare to speak with such boldness there, and that now that it has regained its power to the level 2 half-saint realm, they must obediently become nourishment so that it can enter the Emperor realm. The four prepare to fight together, and the statue also charges forward, saying it will show the Great Emperor's combat techniques. The pressure of the fight is so great that it causes a huge explosion, destroying that place. The bronze statue is defeated, and the four safely return outside. As soon as they come out, Lan Feng believes that the Great Emperor's storage ring is in that woman's hand. Baichen also says that the sword is with Qingting. Xuan asks the two if they really intend to provoke a war between the nations. Yangsheng tells her not to joke, because how could he act against the Empire's princess? Wuchen says he only wants the sword that is with the princess. Yangsheng says that they are right, so it is 2 against 1 and she will not be able to handle it. Wuchen makes a deal with Yangsheng, saying that the Emperor's weapon belongs to the Sword God Valley and that other girl can stay with him, because the sword she holds in her hands is also extraordinary. Besides, she obtained other treasures, so he will not be at a disadvantage. Yangsheng agrees with the division, but Zhuan prepares to fight, saying she will not let them succeed. Before the fight could begin, she is surprised. The protagonist appears between the two, asking if they are really trying to intimidate his disciple. If so, the two can fight against him. The protagonist says that the two have lost, so it is better to let this matter end there. Xuan is impressed by the protagonist's beauty. Moreover, his spiritual magic is superb. The two are confused, asking when he appeared there since they did not notice anything, and even though he shows he is in the spiritual movement realm, it makes no sense, because there was already a restriction in that realm that does not allow flying. Frightened, the two step back asking who he is. The protagonist is disappointed, saying he was there only to have some fun. The two become irritated, asking how he dares to provoke them, and that even if it were a challenge, someone in the spiritual movement realm still would not be able to leave there alive. Qintian becomes excited, asking if they are really going to fight. He calls his life and death sword, and just by drawing it, the energy released is so great that it frightens everyone. Qintian begins to laugh and says he would very much like to see what moves they have, calling the two to come at the same time. Yangsheng realizes that this is not good and that that person is not ordinary. Wuchen feels the same upon seeing that it is an emperor's sword in his hand. Meanwhile, still in the second subspace, the four were standing still. Baichen asks what they are doing there. Lan Feng tells him not to worry because his father will definitely defeat the person causing trouble and that side will be resolved. Qingting tells him to stop joking and asks if he thinks her aunt is vegetarian, because she will definitely win that round. Lan Feng thinks that Miao Ling is very strong, otherwise she would have acted long ago. Suddenly, a voice appears calling Miao Ling. She realizes it is her master and shouts, saying she is there. Qingting starts laughing and says that now it is 2 against 2, asking if Lan Feng really thinks his father has a chance of winning. He says she must be joking, but thinks that he had not taken into account that that woman also had a master. Outside, the protagonist asks his disciple if she is well or hurt. She answers that she is fine, and that the others are playing chess inside, but everyone tells her to be quiet and not let that slip out. Baichen points out that they are fighting outside while they are playing inside, and that is not etiquette. The protagonist says that knowing this is great, and since it seems there is nothing wrong, he can be at ease. Yangsheng becomes irritated and charges at the protagonist, asking who he thinks he is despising, but is stopped by the Ice Queen. He tells her to mind her own business, but she explains that he is wrong because she only wants to ensure her niece's safety. She tells the protagonist that Yang Sheng will be her opponent. He agrees, saying he will leave it to her. Yang Sheng becomes angry and charges at her, telling his ally to take care of the protagonist. With that, the battle between them begins and Wuchen creates a sphere, separating them so no one can interfere. The protagonist asks if that is a domain that only a specialist in the Emperor realm can comprehend. He realizes something is happening because, besides the gravity of space becoming heavier, he also clearly feels that he's being oppressed. Because of this, he can only use spiritual energy to combat that pressure, but the spiritual energy consumed cannot be recovered, because under the influence of the domain, he cannot absorb spiritual energy from outside. However, all of this is useless against him. By stepping on the ground, he activates the unbreakable internal body and charges at his opponent. Wuchen is impressed that the protagonist resisted his domain only with physical strength without using any domain, which means that perhaps he is a body cultivator. However, he feels confident, saying he is a sword cultivator focused on offense, and uses his Thousand Swords ability at once. The two attacks collide. Wuchen realizes that the protagonist's strength is very great, worthy of a body cultivator. Moreover, his sword techniques are also powerful. However, his sharp sword, wielded by a sword cultivator, cannot be restrained by a physical sword. He uses the light sword slash ability and creates an energy sword, attacking the protagonist and causing a great explosion. However, that attack causes no damage to the protagonist. Qintian admits that his opponent truly has some abilities as a sword cultivator, therefore he will return the favor. Wuchen cannot understand how he did not eliminate the protagonist because apparently he has very thick skin. Qintian says that now he will try to cut him and uses the heart sword art, Immortal Sword Trace. Wuchen cannot understand what is happening, but suddenly his whole body suffers cuts. He questions what is happening because, with only a gentle swing, such a powerful sword move was unleashed. He realizes that the protagonist directly cut his roots, and even within his own domain, he can no longer recover his hands. With enormous pain, he screams that it is impossible because moves like that can only be executed by a great emperor at the peak. Suddenly, the domain is broken, and Wuchen falls defeated. Zhuan asks what Yang Sheng intends to do now and if he really wants to continue that fight. The domain that imprisoned the 4 disciples begins to dissipate. Lan Feng runs to help his uncle master, and the 4 gather together, telling the protagonist that this time he was lucky because they will leave. Miao Ling is happy to see her master. He pats her head, saying she did an excellent job. With a smile on her face, she says that she got the storage ring. The Ice Queen finally introduces herself to the protagonist, saying that she is Qingting's aunt and that her name is Zhuan. The protagonist also introduces himself, saying that he is Miao Ling's master and that his name is Qintian. Qing King becomes excited and calls the protagonist Uncle Qin, but he does not like it very much, asking if he looks that old to be called uncle. Moreover, he scolds her, saying that such a beautiful little girl should not speak carelessly because he is still a very handsome guy. Zhuan also scolds her niece, telling her not to be so rude and to apologize immediately. In addition, the Ice Queen says that her empire is not very far from there and asks if he would have time to visit it. He apologizes and says that unfortunately he cannot accept the invitation because he and his disciple have already been away from the Kunlun sword sect for a long time and need to return to report that they are safe. The Ice Queen says that is fine and gives him a token, pointing out that when he has free time, he can visit her by notifying her through that. With everything resolved, they leave, and the protagonist says that now the Emperor's secret realm has finally come to an end, and wonders what kind of reward the system will give this time. The system congratulates the host disciple for perfectly completing the secret realm mission. Because of this, he obtained the reward of the high-grade Emperor-level weapon forging method, in addition to a 20% increase in his personal reward. Upon discovering that he can finally forge such a powerful weapon, he begins to jump and shout with happiness. Miao Ling asks why he is becoming stranger and stranger. In Huashu village of the Haochen Empire, Miao Ling wakes up and her master says good morning to her. 3 months have already passed since the ancient emperor's secret realm. After returning home that day, the master suddenly went crazy. He gathered everyone because he had an announcement to make. He announced that he would seal his spiritual energy in the storage rings and would begin to temper the heart in the mortal world. She tells him that he has already been forging iron in Huashu village for 3 months and asks what exactly he is doing. He explains that he is cultivating an incomparable divine ability and that night he will let her and the little fox witness all of this. Xiaoru appears asking if it is already time to eat. The protagonist says that 3 months have passed and she only eats and sleeps, pointing out that she is a fox and not a bear. At the end of the day, he explains the situation and they ask if he is really trying to forge an emperor-level weapon. The two begin to check his temperature, asking if he has a fever for talking so much nonsense, and also check his pulse to see if it is normal, but there is nothing wrong. The protagonist says he has no fever nor any illness and that he will show his power later. He creates a magic circle and says that first they need to lower their hands. He explains that this is because his spiritual energy is sealed, so he will leave the manipulation of the forging platform and formations to Miao Ling. He prepares himself and begins to rapidly hammer the iron, using the 10,000-layer heavenly hammer technique. Miao Ling says that it is a terrifying forging method. The strength of each strike increases by half compared to the previous one, and no matter how much it increases, the ideal point of impact can always be found, continuously removing impurities without damaging the embryo. With this forging method, even in her previous life she had only heard of it. Moreover, each hammer strike increases his own consumption. At the moment, the protagonist has no spiritual energy, which means he is relying entirely on his powerful physique. Xiaoru is frightened to see that he is maintaining the 10,000-layer heavenly hammer technique because this technique is extremely exhausting, and asks if he can last 3 days. 3 seconds later, the hammer was already incandescent, and the protagonist completely exhausted, saying he cannot continue. Then he decides to leave it at that. Miao Ling shouts that he gave up too quickly, but when she looks down, she realizes that the tool was already finished. The two cannot believe that it really is. Qintian takes that weapon in his hand and says he will call it Dragon Pattern Emperor Saber. Suddenly, he hears a noise at the door, and as soon as Xiaoru goes to see what happened, she shouts, telling her master that 2 people have just fainted in front of the gate. They take the 2 inside and realize that they do not seem to be seriously injured, so they only apply a simple dressing to their wounds. The protagonist says that she did very well and that, moreover, they do not seem like common bandits. He says to let the 2 rest there during the night because everyone is tired, so they will rest a little earlier. Suddenly, the young man begins calling for his grandfather, shouting desperately and asking where he is. The protagonist becomes curious, asking if that is some kind of nightmare, but realizes that something is different. The next day, early in the morning, the 2 disciples were helping the old man recover. The young man returns with some firewood and asks his grandfather if he's already feeling better. Qintian shouts at him to stop being lazy because there are still 200 caddies of firewood left. The boy says that is too much and asks if it cannot be 100 caddies. The protagonist replies that 200 is a good price, because if it were not for them, his grandfather would die in a month. The boy is surprised to discover that his grandfather had only 1 month to live and asks if that is true. They go inside, and the protagonist asks the grandfather to explain why he has a death curse and who he really is. The old man says that his name is Zongwu, and that the young man beside him is called Zongyan, his only grandson. He explains that not long ago, he and his grandson went treasure hunting with Luo Yi, the master of the Rakshasa sect. While searching the place, they found some half-emperor level weapons. Zongwu asked Luo Yi if he was seeing things. Luo Yi said no and stated that those were indeed half-emperor level weapons. Zongwu reports that Luo Yi attacked him to seize the half-step emperor weapon and planted the death curse inside him. This type of curse can initially be removed on one's own, but Luo Yi held him desperately, and at the moment he managed to escape, the death curse had already fused with him. The curse continuously corrodes his life. He can only use his own cultivation to suppress it, slowing the corrosion. Zongyan becomes worried and asks his grandfather about the family, but the old man interrupts him, saying that later, Luo Yi went there to eliminate all traces and exterminated the clan completely. Zongwu tells his grandson that he only managed to save him because of a desperate fight. The protagonist asks what Luo Yi's cultivation level is, but rephrases the question, wanting to know who is the strongest in the Rakshasa sect. Zongwu replies that the strongest in the sect is Luo Yi, who is currently at the 2nd level of the Emperor realm. The protagonist serves some tea and asks the old man to make the Heavenly Tao Oath. This oath is made by a cultivator to the Heavenly Tao, and at the cost of one's own karma if it is violated. The penalty for a minor offense is death, and for a serious offense, the soul will be dispersed and will have no next life. The protagonist says that if he does this, he will transmit to the old man the sit and forget longevity scripture. The 2 are somewhat surprised by the request. Zongwu thinks that even if the protagonist saved his life, he cannot simply ask him to become his slave so brazenly, because at least he should be more polite. Qintian asks what the decision will be and explains that although the old man is temporarily out of danger, the death curse was not removed and he can die at any moment. Only the sit and forget longevity scripture can help him remove the death curse from his body, but there is a price for that. Zongwu asks what the price is. The protagonist says it is everything, but begins to laugh and states that he is joking. He says he only wants him to be his bodyguard. The old man breathes in relief because he had taken a big scare, and accepts the agreement, saying that he can be the bodyguard and will also make the oath. But he has one condition: revenge. In a distant place from there, Luoyi senses something frightening and begins to tremble because he has a bad premonition that shows someone wants to harm him. In Qingyun City, a young man was amazed by the artistic conception of that painting because it seemed to hear the call of the vast and serene sea, like the breathing of the world. Suddenly he opens his eyes and says that he is stuck at the first level of the Nirvana realm, questioning whether his comprehension of the water intent was insufficient. However, the artistic conception of that landscape painting before him is perfect for him, and it can help him surpass his limits. He asks the shopkeeper how many spiritual stones that painting costs. The shopkeeper replies that it costs 100,000 spiritual stones, with a 20% discount, so it comes to 80,000 spiritual stones. The young man is a little worried about the value but decides to buy it because a mere fortune is only external goods, and once he advances, he will recover all of that quickly. The shopkeeper thanks him for the patronage and asks him to come back whenever he needs something. Even satisfied for having bought the painting, the young man leaves there heartbroken because all his money is gone. While he was leaving, another woman was entering. Upstairs, Qintian and Miao Ling were observing things. She asked her master if he really left the village where he was and went to that neighboring city to sell paintings. He answers that that is right because, from what he managed to understand, that place is the liveliest there is. She asks if that is really it because it seems that it is not just about selling paintings. The protagonist says that she needs to believe a little more in her master. Suddenly, a woman comes out of the house calling guests to play, saying that the girls were already all awake, with 50% discount during the day. Miao Ling immobilizes her master, saying that she already knew that it was not just about selling paintings and that with 50% discount, it will be very convenient for him to go down. He thinks that this time his arm will not withstand it, but in fact, he only wanted to complete the system mission. In the first mission, he needed to obtain 1 million spiritual stones, but the reward was unknown. In the second mission, he needed to gain the admiration of 1 million people, and the reward was also unknown. During the night, Zongwu goes to the protagonist and asks if he was calling him. Qintian points out that almost 2 months have passed since they met. The old man agrees. The protagonist explains that now he has already removed the death curse, and that the old man's cultivation was also restored to the second level of the Emperor realm, so he should no longer stay there waiting. He asks him to depart that very night. Zongwu is surprised by this. In addition, the protagonist points out that apparently the old man does not have a weapon, and if he does not mind, he has a cleaver to slaughter pigs. He normally finds it quite useful for slicing vegetables and meat. Zongwu asks what that is, but as soon as he holds it, he realizes that it is actually an emperor weapon, and questions who exactly his master is. That weapon for which others fight anxiously and kill their own children and relatives to be able to wield it. And yet the protagonist is giving it casually to him, which makes him ask if that is some kind of test. Sometime later, in front of Luoyi's house, Zongwu shouts for him to come out. Luoyi comes out asking who dares to disturb him, but as soon as he looks, he realizes who is really there. Luoyi says that he searched for that old man for a long time, but did not expect that he would deliver himself to his door. Zongwu prepares to fight and says that he would very much like to see if he will be able to laugh after that. But as soon as they see the weapon he is holding, everyone begins to laugh, saying that if he does not have a weapon to fight, they can lend one. Zongwu tells them to stop nonsense, because he will avenge his entire clan there and now. Luoyi continues mocking and apologizes, saying that the dignified head of the Zong family brought a kitchen knife to fight someone, so he cannot help laughing. He asks if the family did not give him money to buy a worthy weapon to fight, but then says that he finally remembered that the entire family was already annihilated by him. Zongwu becomes angry and says that now he will avenge his entire family. Luoyi takes the weapons he is so proud of, and the collision of both attacks causes a great explosion. With only the first impact, one of the swords already begins to crack. Zongwu continues attacking with everything he has, and all the swords used for defense begin to crack and break. Luoyi is surprised and questions how that is possible because those two weapons are actually half-step emperor weapons. Zongwu points out that he already expected that because the knife they were mocking is a true emperor weapon. Luoyi, frightened, asks the elders for help, but Zongwu continues attacking, saying that calling his parents will not solve it. The elders take action using a secret art. They create a giant avatar and save Luoyi, in addition to raising another protective barrier. Luoyi asks the two elders to keep him occupied because he will cast a new death curse. The elders begin to fight and Zongwu merely dodges the attacks, asking if Luoyi really believes that hiding behind a turtle shell means he is untouchable, because that only shows that he underestimates the power of an emperor-level weapon. With only one attack, he manages to completely slice that defense, causing an explosion that throws the elders far away. Zongwu advances quickly, saying that no one can stand in his way and that now he will end all of that. Luo Yi replies that unfortunately Zongwu is still one step behind, because the death curse has already been completed. The effect of the curse is activated and the old man's heart is once again imprisoned. Luo Yi uses his enhanced instant death ability, saying that the first time the old man managed to escape, but this time he will not escape with his life. The curse tries to apply instant death, but something even more powerful suppresses it, destroying the cursed doll. Luo Yi is startled and asks how that is possible because the death curse was not effective. Zongwu explains that this happened because his young master taught him a cultivation method that neutralizes the death curse. Luo Yi continues not believing it, saying that it is not possible, because how can there be a cultivation method capable of combating the death curse in that world unless… Zongwu delivers the final blow and tells Luo Yi to take that doubt with him. The next day, Zongwu goes to the protagonist and returns the weapon, saying everything has been settled and thanking him for the help. Qin Tian is happy to hear that everything went well. Zongwu says there is something he would like to ask. The protagonist tells him he can ask whatever he wants. His subordinate says that the power of that knife is extraordinary, so he would like to ask about the origin of that weapon. With a smile on his face, Qin Tian says that he made it himself, since the kitchen didn't have a vegetable knife, so he thought trying to make one would be a good idea. Zongwu becomes confused and asks if he understood correctly. Qin Tian explains that it was supposed to take 3 days and 3 nights to forge, but he spent only 3 seconds, and even he was surprised by that. But the truth is that Zongwu was the one who was truly shocked. He thinks that ever since the protagonist taught him the cultivation method, he suspected Qin Tian was not ordinary, but he never imagined he would be this extraordinary. Whether it was 3 seconds or 3 years, how could an emperor-level weapon be casually forged and possess such immense power? The protagonist tells his bodyguard that as long as he remains loyal, in the future he will forge an emperor weapon, especially for Zongwu. The old man is surprised and asks if that is true. The protagonist says it is so true that even his grandson will receive an emperor-level weapon. Zongwu falls to his knees and swears his loyalty to the protagonist for the rest of his life. However, before they continue with all of that, he tells the protagonist that the truth is, he still has some doubts about him. Zongwu points out that because of all the life-saving help the protagonist provided him, he feels indebted, however. He remembers that when he was walking, he looked at the cleaver and wondered who would forge an emperor-level weapon to look like just a kitchen knife. That made him question whether it really was an emperor-level weapon, since he had almost been exterminated because of a half-step emperor weapon. So how could there be something as good as that? Because of that, the old man thought the protagonist was only trying to comfort him, since he didn't have a weapon and had suffered for so long. Irritated with the situation, he swings the cleaver, and an extremely powerful attack devastates everything in front of him. Qin Tian is surprised to discover that it was the old man who caused that destruction. He apologizes, saying that later he will go there to fix everything. The protagonist says that there is something they need to solve first. He explains that Zongyan fell into a pit while chopping firewood that morning, and he cannot pull him out nor think of a way to solve it. The old man is surprised and asks if it could be what he is thinking. His master says yes. The pit his grandson fell into was the one he himself created. Meanwhile, inside the pit, Zongyan is trapped and calling for help, saying he does not want to lose his life there, since he has not even gotten married yet. Sometime later inside the shop, the protagonist is bored while serving customers. A woman asks why the shopkeeper changed, and the protagonist asks why she needs Zongwu. The woman explains that she had an appointment with the previous shopkeeper for 3 famous sword paintings, since they had arranged for her to pick them up that day. Qin Tian is surprised to discover that she was the one who ordered them. He takes the paintings and says that a few days ago, the former shopkeeper asked him for help painting some famous sword figures. The woman remembers that Zongwu once told her that he was not the owner of that shop, and that the paintings she was looking at were not made by him either. Realizing this, the woman becomes impressed and asks the protagonist if it could be that those incredible works were painted by him. Qin Tian is surprised and asks if something is wrong. The woman continues looking at the protagonist in amazement, while thinking that she cannot sense any spiritual energy from him, yet he can paint such profound and evocative works. Perhaps he is a veteran in the Emperor realm. The woman notices a book on the table and asks the protagonist if he also wrote it and if she may take a look. He says yes, since he has no problem with that. In the book it was written, "Legend says that 800 years ago 2 celestial maidens from the immortal realm, bound by fate, reincarnated into the mortal world as snakes, later transforming into the beautiful women known as Bai Suzhen and Green Snake. On a rainy day, Suzhen met the apothecary's assistant Shu Xian on a bridge. While the protagonist serves another customer, the woman reads with complete attention. She is surprised by the story. It is very interesting. But when she reaches the last page, it says that the story continues. She almost collapses, asking why there is no more continuation. Qin Tian asks her what she thinks about the legend of the green snake that he wrote. She praises it, saying it is very good and very interesting, but she found it a little short since she liked the story so much. The protagonist explains that he is still writing it, which is why the story is short. He thinks that he is not the original author and writing from memories of the real world is a bit tiring. The woman, completely enchanted with the story, thinks that she has finally found what she was looking for. She asks if Qin Tian would accept her company printing and selling that story. She introduces herself, saying her name is Lin Wan, and that the Lin Corporation is one of the 2 largest corporations in Qingyun City. The protagonist is surprised and thinks this is exactly what he needed, since a few days ago he was rejected by Qingmu, one of the 2 major mercantile corporations in the city, and now the Lin Corporation wants to print and sell it. Without hesitation, the protagonist says he agrees and emphasizes that he will allow her to print and distribute The Legend of the Green Snake. Lin Wan is happy with the news and explains that the profits from the story will be divided with 80% going to the protagonist and 20% to the company. The young woman who came with Lin Wan tells her that she does not quite understand that division, because that way the company would not make a profit. Lin Wan explains that the reason for that distribution is that the legend of the green snake itself has no value. Cultivators spend most of their time in tedious cultivation, so they also need some entertainment to relax. Reading is a way for cultivators to relax and have fun. Therefore, the goal of The Legend of the Green Snake is to attract customers. The more people read it and think it is good, the more they will remember the company that sold it to them. The customer flow of the merchant guild will naturally increase. The young woman is impressed by Lin Wan's intelligence. Not long after, people all over the city are talking about the protagonist's story. A woman runs to her father shouting that something is wrong. Her father asks what is happening and why she is in such a hurry. The woman explains that The Legend of the Green Snake, published by the Lin Corporation, has caused a huge stir in the city and attracted many people. She emphasizes that their company is in a very passive position and that half a month ago they bought a large batch of goods, and if they cannot sell them soon, the corporation may face a shortage of spirit stones for circulation. She is Qing Yu from the Qing Corporation. Her father is surprised and asks what she said, telling her to quickly summon all the shopkeepers and managers of the city branch for a meeting. He is Qing Hongming of the Qing Corporation. Soon after, the meeting begins and he tells everyone to think of a solution quickly, otherwise all of them may fall. Chen An is somewhat uneasy during the meeting. Li Li notices this and tells the master that he needs to report a situation. Chen An thinks that Bastard is trying to step over him to move forward. Chen An had rejected the protagonist's proposal and told him to leave, saying the corporation does not accept things useless to cultivators and that, moreover, Green Snake is very bad. Li Li reports that a young man from the public school brought them The Legend of the Green Snake to publish, but shopkeeper Chen An refused without even looking at it. Otherwise, the company would not be facing that crisis. Chen An throws himself to his knees on the ground, saying he was temporarily confused and asking for another chance, promising he will find a way to correct that mistake. To try to solve the situation, Chen An goes to the protagonist's shop and kneels down, begging for forgiveness, saying that this humble one had eyes but could not recognize Mount Tai. Therefore, he asks for the protagonist's magnanimity to forgive such an error. He says he is there to offer sincere apologies and begs the protagonist not to hold a grudge, asking if he could reconsider that matter. Qing Yu, who is with him, thinks this is excellent because since Qin Tian had approached their corporation before, it shows he still has a favorable impression. So, as long as Chen An apologizes sincerely and perhaps offers more spirit stones, they might even be able to recruit him. The protagonist says he accepts the apology but will not forgive him, and tells him to leave because the weather has been very cold lately, so he is closing the shop since there is nothing more to do. Qing Yu is surprised by that answer and tries to intervene, asking the protagonist to wait a moment. She says that since he has shown so much sincerity, perhaps Qin Tian should consider cooperating with them again. She steps a little closer to him, saying that they are willing to offer double the spiritual stones as long as he is willing to return. On top of that, she can offer something he might want in the future, including anything he desires. She can do absolutely anything. Qin Tian flicks her forehead and tells her to get lost, shutting the door in their faces. She is left confused since she is considered one of the greatest beauties in that city. Seeing Qin Tian remain completely unmoved by her seduction makes her question whether he is even a man. Irritated by the situation, she scolds her subordinate, saying that all of this is his fault. Suddenly, a man approaches saying that she is Qing Yu's niece and that it has been quite some time since they last met. She turns in surprise upon seeing Master Gu He. He explains that he was passing through the city and decided to pay them a visit. Sometime later, Linwan looks at the report, saying that within half a month, the Qingmu Corporation suddenly acquired a batch of third-level pills. The price was 20% higher than ordinary pills. However, the effectiveness was 50% better. Since then, the number of people buying pills from the Lin Corporation has dropped a lot. A large quantity of pills was forced into storage. Her assistant asked her to have breakfast first since that was the day she had arranged to meet the protagonist. Sometime later at Qintian's shop, she hands over last month's profit from the story he had produced. As soon as the protagonist takes his profit, he says he heard that her company has been going through difficult times recently. She feels a little embarrassed, seeing that even he already knows about the difficulties her company is facing. The protagonist says he has already heard a little about it, and from his point of view, as long as the alchemists from the Qingmu Corporation do not leave, the Lin Corporation has no hope of recovery. He thinks he has no idea when this mortal tempering of the world will end, and that until his spiritual energy recovers, he needs an organization to help him with some trivial matters. Linwan explains that she tried to guide and get in touch with alchemists from other major cities, but no one was willing to go to that city. And if that continues the same way, then her company may end up closing its doors. The protagonist snaps his fingers, saying he had a great idea, and asks what she thinks if he were to provide fourth-level pills or higher. Linwan is surprised and asks if he really is such a powerful alchemist. The protagonist tells her to come back in 7 days. A short time later, in the middle of the forest inside a small house, an explosion happens. And, as expected, the protagonist was producing his pills. Zongyan looks at the pill in his hand and tells his young master that now he can successfully refine fourth-level pills. Zongwu holds his grandson, saying he could not believe it, because in just 7 days his grandson managed to master the refinement of third-level and fourth-level pills. Xiaoru looks at that scene and points out that no matter how many times she sees that same scene, it is still bizarre that pill furnaces explode and still manage to produce finished pills. Miao Ling agrees with her, saying that it is only a slight waste of furnaces. The protagonist, who was lying dejected on the ground, questions why that was happening. Zongyan had never had explosions while refining pills before, but after receiving his guidance, he started exploding things. That makes the protagonist wonder whether he is cursed, since everything he refines explodes. And maybe that could be scientific, or not, maybe even cultivation. However, he was very bothered, wondering what kind of curse that was, because it is not scientific and much less cultivation. Sometime later, Qingyu was completely irritated, asking Qinan where they were and where all the regular pill buyers had gone. Qinan asks her to spare him and explains that they had all gone to the Lin Corporation. In front of the Lin Company, a crowd of people was shouting to buy third-level and fourth-level pills. Because of that, Linwan's father, known as Lin Zhou, was laughing to himself, saying that was already to be expected from his daughter, because she had handled things very well. And because of all that commotion, the Qingmu Corporation must be in a panic at that moment. Linwan thanks her father for all the praise. However, she says there is one thing she is not sure whether she can already discuss with him, because it is a little difficult to say. Her father asks her to explain the situation. Some time ago, the protagonist had made a deal with her. Because she appreciated his writing, he decided to help her once. However, if she wanted his additional help, the condition was that the Lin Corporation swear loyalty to him. He points out that he already knows she could not make the final decision, so he would very much like her to pass this message to the family patriarch, so he could discuss this matter with him. Linwan gathers her courage and tells her father that those pills come with a condition. In addition, Qintian said that as long as the company swore loyalty to him, in the future he would provide Emperor-level pills and Emperor-level weapons. Lin Zhou is surprised and asks if she understood correctly and whether the protagonist really said all that. Linwan tells her father yes and asks what they should do. Her father takes a breath and points out that young people nowadays are truly ignorant, because with small achievements, they become arrogant. But he agrees to have a dialogue. He goes to the protagonist, who is sitting like a true king. Lin Zhou introduces himself, but notices something strange. He looks at Zongwu and thinks he has an extremely oppressive aura, one that seems to crush a person. And that clearly is Emperor grade, which makes him realize that the person serving the protagonist is an Emperor-level cultivator. Realizing that this is not just a joke, he bows even lower and introduces himself in a more formal way, saying that he is the leader of the Lin Corporation and Linwan's father, called Lin Zhou. In addition, he heard that the protagonist is interested in recruiting his corporation. Lin Zhou realizes that the protagonist is extremely powerful, since his subordinate is an Emperor-level cultivator. Because of that, he and his corporation absolutely cannot offend that person. Qintian smiles and says that apparently his daughter has already told most of what he had said. He points out that the patriarch does not need to doubt his intentions or his words, because the Emperor-level weapons and Emperor-level pills will be his in the future. But that will not happen immediately, since the Lin Corporation is still not qualified to possess them. The protagonist explains that Linzhou needs to continue developing and strengthening the corporation, and he will help fulfill that goal. Qintian throws his cleaver in front of Linzhou. The patriarch is surprised and starts trembling. The protagonist says that he can take a look at that knife. As soon as Linzhou picks it up, thinking it is just a cleaver, he feels a strong presence and realizes that it is not an ordinary cleaver. He becomes enchanted by the glow and the seductive feeling, an intense desire impossible to resist, which proves that it is actually an Emperor-level weapon. Impressed, he asks why and wonders what kind of person could make something like that, because when refining Emperor-level weapons, they should be made to look grand and magnificent. Qintian explains that that dragon-patterned Emperor-level weapon was forged by him personally, especially for cooking, and that dishes made with an Emperor-level weapon are incredibly delicious. And he asks his subordinate, who confirms by saying that the flavor is magnificent. Linzhou kneels on the ground and grabs the protagonist's leg, saying that in the name of his corporation, he swears by the heavenly Tao that his corporation will always be loyal to young master Qintian. The patriarch wonders who the protagonist really is, because he is a super cultivator, and if he let the chance to cling to someone so incredible slip away, he would be an idiot for the rest of his life. Qintian tells Zhongyan to come in. The patriarch looks back, asking if there is someone else there. Zhongyan appears and introduces himself as the most handsome, the most charming, and invincible in the universe, the alchemist Zhongyan. Thanks to that introduction, the patriarch starts wondering if he made his oath too early. The protagonist explains that he is the alchemist. Linzhou becomes a little confused by that situation. Zhongyan starts laughing and says, "That is exactly right." The patriarch remains suspicious, saying that he is a very young alchemist, which makes him question whether the pills he refines can really surpass those of the Qingmu Corporation. To clear up that doubt, he asks what level of pills he can refine. Zhongyan explains that in the past he could only refine second-level pills, but after Young Master's guidance, he can refine fourth-level pills. In addition, the pills previously sent to the Lin Corporation were refined by him. Hearing that, the patriarch runs up to him and grabs him, saying that it is wonderful to hear that the pills delivered earlier were refined by him. And now, with Zhongyan's help, they can definitely defeat the Qingmu Corporation. The protagonist who is watching that scene points out that he is giving them a person to help them, and if even so the Lin Corporation is not capable of completely defeating the Qingmu Corporation, that will mean they are not qualified to be his subordinates. Linzhou shouts that he will defeat the Qingmu Corporation, but Zhongyan was only irritated at being held. Because of that, the war between the two corporations began. The Qingmu Corporation made an announcement telling everyone to come immediately because they had put good items up for auction. But the Lin Corporation also made an announcement saying that their items were even better, attracting almost all the customers. Qingmu tried again, saying they were having a clearance sale for the last 3 days, but that did not bring in any customers. The Lin Corporation gave a 50% discount to the first ones who arrived and bought, and that made the whole population go there. The Qingmu Corporation was on the verge of bankruptcy because they had not had customers for quite some time. During the night, at the protagonist's shop, he was looking over the reports and noticed that the Lin Corporation had done very well, because in just 1 month they had made Qingmu lose half of its stores, and at that rate they would soon be able to drive Qingmu out of the city. However, he did not understand why the sales of spiritual healing pills and spiritual reinforcement pills were so high. Zhongwu explains to him that in recent months the spiritual energy on Qingyun Mountain outside the city had increased, leading to speculation about the appearance of treasures. As a result, conflicts frequently occurred near the mountain, and the demand for those two types of pills rose drastically. Qintian receives a notification from the system saying that he has just received a side mission of Mortal World Tempering. He needs to obtain the Azure Dragon Vein. Within that month, an Azure Dragon Vein will appear in the Qingyun mountain range. The Dragon Vein can double the concentration of spiritual energy within a radius of 30 kilometers and increase it tenfold within a radius of 3 kilometers. The protagonist becomes a little confused, questioning whether that is a dream. Suddenly, he realizes how all of that was working because the 3 side missions of the system correspond to wealth, fame, and lands, gold coins, reputation, Tao companions, cultivation methods, and earth veins. In cultivation, besides fleeting and elusive opportunities that are difficult to find, the most important things are wealth, fame, partners, methods, and lands. These 5 are the resources that ordinary cultivators need for their training. However, resources do not fall from the sky, so they need to fight to seize them and make use of them. Because he has the system, He never worried about those things, and that is why he is a little lost. This means that what is lacking for him is not a Tao, but a Dao heart that longs for strength. Zongwu is impressed to see that the young master feels completely different from a few minutes earlier. The system appears again, saying that the realization occurred when the host successfully attained enlightenment. However, he thinks that, to complete the mission, he still needs to seize the Azure Dragon Vein. He tells Zongwu that they will go have some fun on Qingyun Mountain very soon. The next morning, they head to the mountain. Zongwu points out that the spiritual energy there really is very dense, and apparently the previous rumors were probably true because treasures really are appearing there. The little fox becomes happy because of that, since now they can look for treasures together. But suddenly, two other people arrive. The young man says that originally he was thinking of trying his luck there, but the girl says that, in fact, they managed to find the person the Alliance leader wants to capture, and that proves they have very good luck. Xiaoru gets frightened and runs behind Miao Ling, asking for help. Zongwu asks who they are. The young man says that there are many people there. The woman introduces herself by saying that she is the Clover of Fortune from the Emperor Alliance, known as the Four-Leaf Clover. The young man says that he is the Dice Demon of the Emperor Alliance, Bai Ying. The woman asks whether they can hand Linwan over to them. Miao Ling steps in front, saying that Xiaoru is part of the family and will never be handed over to the Alliance. Apparently, the Orochimaru here managed to get the Sharingan and activates Tsukuyomi. Zongwu also tries to expand his domain, however it does not work very well. Bai Ying tells the old man that he did not expect that, and that is because he discarded all the flashy abilities of his domain. Zongwu questions what is happening there because his domain is being completely suppressed and cannot be deployed. Bai Ying says that in exchange for abandoning all abilities, he can welcome them to the game of life. Everything inside will be judged fairly by the Eye of Judgment within his domain, and now he will introduce the gameplay of that game. He explains that each of them will play as one of the 4 disciples in the spirit movement stage of the Hidden Sword sect, going to Qingyun village to help resolve the demons lurking there. In the game, the various actions and skills of the dolls will require the rolling of 10-sided dice to check the success rate. The green dice represent the tens algorithm and the white dice represent the units algorithm. The lower the number rolled, the higher the success rate. A result from 0 to 5 counts as a critical success and grants additional rewards, while 95 to 99 is a critical failure with additional penalties occurring. He asks everyone to take out the dice they have in their hands. Miao Ling looks at the dice in her hands and questions when that got there, but the protagonist thinks it is very entertaining. Bai Ying says that now that everything has been explained, it is time to start that very fun game, and now the characters will be generated. Dolls exactly identical to them appear inside the game and the character list is displayed. The protagonist's name is Qin Tian. He possesses a standard flying sword and his outfit is that of a swordsman. Currently, he has 5 healing pills and 5 spiritual pills, and his stats are Strength, Perception, and Agility at level 9, Constitution at 18, Intelligence at 5, Charisma at 16, and Health at 28. The protagonist thinks that this is exactly what is expected from the system. Miao Ling has a weapon called a standard flying sword and her outfit is also that of a swordsman. She also has 5 healing pills and 5 spiritual pills. Her stats are Strength at level 10, Agility at level 8, Constitution at level 11, Intelligence at 9, Perception at 8, Charisma at 14, and Health at 21. She is not very happy with her character card. Xiaoru has a magic broom and a mage robe outfit in addition to 10 antidote pills. Her stats are Strength and Agility at level 6, Intelligence at level 16, Perception at 8, Charisma at 14, and Health at 20. She is impressed to see that her character is a mage who controls the 5 elements, because that is very similar to her. Zongwu has a large cleaver and a butcher outfit with a total of 5 strength pills and 5 berserker pills. His stats are Strength at level 15, Agility at 11, Constitution currently at 12, Intelligence at 9, Perception at level 8, Charisma at 5, and Health at 22. He is somewhat doubtful, wondering whether he is also a swordsman since he has skills with the cleaver. Bai Ying starts the game by saying that they arrived at the entrance of the village and met Kang Huo, the village chief, and he is very happy about their arrival. Kang Huo says that they have finally arrived and that this is wonderful because recently the villagers have been seeing zombies appearing everywhere, and when the villagers try to leave, a thick fog appears to stop them, and everyone is terrified. The girl asks what they're going to do, whether to leave or enter the village. Xiaoru says that she wants to ask for more detailed information about the zombies. She goes to the village chief saying that she needs to know when the zombies first appeared and whether there was any unusual phenomenon before they appeared. The village chief explains that 3 months ago, a loud noise came from the mountain behind the village, and since then, zombies began to appear everywhere. Originally, there was only one, but after 1 month, 3 more appeared. And now, 3 months later, there are 3 zombies near the village. Miaoling asks them to wait a little since Bai Ying has not yet said what the victory conditions and penalties for failure are. He says that cautious young lady asked a very good question. He explains that only by finding the true culprit behind that incident in the village will they be able to win the game and leave his domain. Otherwise, all of them will be sealed inside the puppets and remain inside the domain forever. The protagonist says that if that is the case, then they only have one path and decides to enter the village. Zhongwu is confused because the young master seemed very happy. After that, they follow the village chief to the center of the village. Then, immediately, they go ask the villagers, but unfortunately, they cannot gather any useful information. At nightfall, the village chief takes all of them to an empty house to rest, and after that, the real show begins in the deep night. While they sleep comfortably, outside the house, the zombies slowly approach. Bai Ying gets ready to roll the dice, saying that now he will decide the number of zombies that will appear. The woman begins asking the 4-leaf clover to curse the others and harm the rest in order to bring good luck to Master Bai Ying. He rolls the dice, saying that the probability of 1 zombie appearing is 50%, 2 zombies is 35%, and 3 zombies is only 15%. As soon as the dice stop, the score shown is 0-3, and that is a critical success. And that number is not favorable at all for the protagonist and his companions because 3 zombies will attack them. And in addition, due to the critical success, not only will the zombies be strengthened, but their cultivation will also be improved. All 3 zombies are at the peak stage of spirit movement. The woman tells them to enter combat because they will gain the initiative, but for that they need to roll the dice. Zhongwu volunteers to go first and rolls his dice, which land on 3 and 5. Because of that, his attack is successful, and he uses the mountain-splitting saber technique to cut off zombie number 3's left arm, causing severe damage. Miaoling says that now it is her turn, and the result was 10. Because of that, she uses the ice seal sword technique, freezing zombie number 2, who will remain immobilized for 2 turns. Xiaoru tries and rolls her dice, getting 0 and 3, obtaining a critical success. The 2 of them say that it was a success, and now she will cast her ultimate spell. She gets excited, saying that this is excellent because now she will be able to land a critical hit. With her magic broom, she attacks the zombies, destroying all 3 at once. The 2 girls celebrate, saying that they finally managed to defeat the zombies, but the protagonist keeps analyzing the board, saying that he does not think things are that simple. The 4-leaf clover says that he is right because at the moment of crisis, zombie number 1 used Endure, which can only be used with a critical success. She rolls the die again and once more gets a critical hit. After using Endure, the zombie will be forced to remain with only a single drop of blood left and will immediately gain the ability to act. Bai Ying says that now it is his turn and rolls the dice, getting 0 and 0, obtaining another critical hit. Because of that, zombie number 1 uses Devour and starts eating his companions. He recovers all of his injuries and is also promoted to the golden body stage. The 3 subordinates are frightened, but the protagonist only seems even more interested. Now, zombie number 1 is at the peak golden body stage, and his special abilities are Devour, which restores his life by consuming corpses, Quick, which allows him to act twice per turn, and Poisonous Claws, whose claws contain poison, and those who are struck by the zombie will be infected by a virus, and if they are not eliminated, will turn into zombies after 7 turns. Bai Ying explains that zombie number 1 advanced to the golden body stage, so he will act first. He rolls the dice again, getting 0 and 1. And another critical hit appears. He chooses to use Poisonous Double Claws to attack Miaoling and Zhongwu. Miaoling's puppet loses 11 health points, leaving her with only 10 points. And in addition, she becomes poisoned. Zhongwu also loses 11 health points, leaving him with 11 points and poisoned. As soon as their puppets suffer that injury, the 2 of them suffer the same injury on their real bodies, and that shows that the damage the puppets suffer is also transferred to them. Bai Ying says that they're correct because that is the true effect of his domain. However, this effect is bidirectional, and if his puppet gets hurt, he will also be hurt. Even so, Bai Ying asks whether they can wait until his puppet and the 4-leaf clover's puppet appear. The 2 of them start laughing, and the 4-leaf clover explains that, on top of that, with the luck bonus added to the domain, they can basically obtain any numbers they want. Xiaoru says that this is cheating and calls them despicable villains. Bai Ying rolls the dice again because zombie number 1 has the ability that allows him to roll twice per turn so he can attack 1 more time. As expected, he gets another critical hit and decides to use the Poisonous Claws on the 2 of them again. Bai Ying begins mocking the situation while laughing. saying that he already has 2 victories because now Zhongwu and Miaoling will be eliminated. But the protagonist takes a deep breath and says that this is not right. He steps in front and blocks the zombie's attack, breaking its fingers and making the zombies scream in pain. Bai Ying is confused and asks what is happening there. The protagonist says that now it is time to update the game. A new character list appears, and now the protagonist changes his name to Idiot Qin Tian and has a standard flying sword as his weapon with his swordsman outfit. In addition, he still has his 5 healing pills and 5 spiritual pills. However, his stats change drastically. His strength, agility, constitution, and health each receive an increase of 999 points. His intelligence gains only 1 point of improvement and his charisma remains the same. His special abilities are Eternal Immortal Body. After activation, strength, agility, and constitution increase to their limit, but intelligence falls to the minimum. The protagonist laughs, saying that this is truly the character card he wanted from the very beginning. The 4-leaf clover cannot understand how his stats became like that. Bai Ying also becomes irritated, saying that the protagonist is cheating, but the protagonist says that this is Bai Ying's domain. So how could he be cheating, since it is Bai Ying himself who defines the rules? But in truth, the protagonist was laughing in his mind, because no matter how strong any opponent's domain may be, it cannot be stronger than the system. The 4-leaf clover asks Bai Ying what he managed to figure out, but Bai Ying says that the domain is warning him that the protagonist is not cheating. Qin Tian says that now that everything has been clarified, it is their turn to attack. Miaoling and Zhongwu take an antidote pill and a healing pill, eliminating the poison and recovering 100% of their health. Qin Tian says that he wants the 2 of them, but Bai Ying orders the human skin demons to attack. Those demons are also at the golden body stage, but the protagonist manages to defeat them easily. Bai Ying sends another monster, but Qin Tian destroys it again with a single strike. Bai Ying starts to fall into despair and uses the evil flood dragon, but the result is the same. The protagonist eliminates everything with extreme ease. The 4-leaf clover and Bai Ying panic. Qin Tian starts walking toward them, saying that now it is their turn. The 2 of them call the protagonist Lord and admit their mistake, asking him to spare their lives. But Qin Tian says that they will go to hell to repent for everything they have done. His blow was so powerful that it completely destroyed the board and the domain, defeating both of them with a single punch. He thinks that by defeating them, he gains time, because the dragon vein has just appeared. The atmosphere on the mountain was completely different. Lightning was covering the sky and the silhouette of a dragon had appeared on the horizon. However, other cultivators were also there to seize that opportunity. A person appears in front of the 2 of them, laughing, saying that the Kunyuan Empire is claiming that dragon vein and calling all the others irrelevant, telling them to step aside. The ancient ancestor of Flying Star Valley shouts that they cannot allow the Empire to obtain that vein, otherwise the sects within the Empire will never have a way out. The ancient ancestor of the Thousand Blades sect and the ancient ancestor of the Xuanbing Gate were also fighting to see who would get the dragon vein. Another person approaches, saying that they will fight, but Kunyuan dodges the attack, saying that he is ready. Xiao Zhan, the great general of the Haoshan Empire, questions how Kunyuan dares to come to the Haoshan Empire to cause trouble and orders him to leave immediately. Wenruhi asks whether Zhan, the great general of the Haoshan Empire, would be enough to stop him, but the elders of the other sects also help attack him. Wenruhi says that apparently there are always flies around delicious food, but with a single strike he attacks the 3 of them, defeating the 2 elders. He asks Zhan whether he really thinks those idiotic lunatics can stop him, because they are completely mistaken. While the battle between them was going on, the protagonist and his group were only watching. Zhongwu asks whether they are going to act, but the protagonist tells them to wait a little longer. He notices that Wenruhe is currently at the triple strength of the Emperor realm, and asks Miaoling whether he is the Emperor of Kunyuan. She says no, and explains that that man is the brother of the great Emperor of Kunyuan who attacked her. The protagonist becomes irritated when he sees that he is the brother of the enemy who injured one of his disciples. Zhongwu is frightened to see that his master's aura has changed again. Zhan and Wenruhe were still arguing and fighting to see who would get the dragon vein. Zhan tells Wenruhe that he has always committed evil acts and, because of that, his end will be there. But Wenruhe remains confident, saying that Zhan is overestimating himself. Wenruhe attacks using his skill, sweeping away 1,000 armies. Zhan realizes that this is not good at all and the attack hits him, causing a huge explosion. He looks behind and sees that the Azure Dragon Vein has finally appeared. That is the Dragon Vein Crystal. The elder who was injured asks his companion to help him try to seize the Dragon Vein, but his companion says that there is no chance of that happening because they were already injured. Qin Tian gives the order and Zhongwu charges forward with a devastating attack. Wenrui notices that another rat has appeared. The impact of the two of their attacks causes a massive explosion. Wenruhi manages to defend himself and asks who is attacking him, but Zongwu merely says that he will be eliminated in the protagonist's name. Wenruhi gets irritated, asking how a mere rat dares to ruin his plans, because apparently he is seeking death. Wenruhi concentrates to use his ultimate art, 100 Meteors. Zongwu manages to cut apart all the attacks that were coming in his direction, however. When he looks upward, he realizes that several other meteor fragments were coming toward him, and thinks that this really is incredible. Even so, he continues destroying everyone he can. Wenrui points out that no matter how powerful his opponent is, as long as they cannot get close, they will not stand a chance. He continues sending meteors, causing explosions everywhere, until, after hundreds of meteors, Zongwu can no longer defend himself, as his body is injured and completely exhausted. He thinks that this was already expected from a veteran emperor because those continuous attacks are basically impossible to defend against. But Zhang returns to the fight, shouting that he is there to help. The two begin fighting again, and Zongwu takes advantage of the situation to attack together with him, pressuring Wenruhe, who cannot get close to the dragon vein. The protagonist picks up his pan, saying that now it is their turn to act. He explains his plan, saying that the fight is happening at the dragon's head, so they need to go to the tail of the vein. They climb onto the pan and begin heading toward the dragon's tail. Xiao Ru is impressed when she sees that the dragon vein was really emerging from inside that cave. The elders were also fighting among themselves to see who would obtain the dragon vein, until one of them notices that someone is approaching the dragon vein. One of the elders lowers his guard, and that is enough for him to be struck. The elder who wins the fight says that he had already warned that the battle was decided. One elder looks at the protagonist and his disciples, saying that they are just little brats below the emperor realm, so they could stay there all day and still would not be able to seal the dragon vein. The protagonist simply looks at him and says that those words only make him even more despicable. A short time later, they arrive at the cave where the tail of the dragon vein was emerging. He asks Miao Ling to stand guard at the entrance of the cave. He approaches the origin of the dragon vein and opens the system to seal it, and an absurd amount of energy begins to gather in that place. Qin Tian manages to absorb all the energy from the dragon vein that was there. Wenruhe, who is fighting Zongwu, notices that the dragon vein has disappeared, and the others also cannot believe that the vein has been sealed. The protagonist manages to absorb all the energy, and the system says that the mission in the mortal realm has been completed. The supreme profound fire furnace of the 9 heavens, supreme emperor grade, the heavenly god hammer, emperor grade, the supreme secret art, and the demonic sound corpse control technique. All of these were the rewards the protagonist had received. Qin Tian smiles, saying that this feeling is very familiar to him, and now Grandpa Qin is back. He gathers an absurd amount of energy around him and leaps, heading straight toward Wenruhe. He uses the heart sword art, one strike split in two. Wenruhe manages to block the attack, but his weapon is destroyed. He cannot believe it, since his Yuan dragon spear is a high-grade emperor weapon. Zongwu shouts that they need to beat the dog while it is down and uses the Zong clan's Samsara Slash. Xiaozhan agrees and also charges in with everything he has. Wenruhi manages to dodge one of the attacks and uses his shield to block Zongwu's strike. However, he is thrown far away. He gets up angrily, asking if the others want to see him dead, because if that is the case, then they will all die together. He activates one of his talismans and appears behind the protagonist. Xiaozhan shouts that it is an ancestral talisman of the 9 divine thunders from the Kunyuan Empire. Zongwu shouts for his master to run quickly, because the power of that talisman is even more terrifying than a full power attack from an expert at the peak of the Emperor realm. Qin Tian remains calm and says it is useless because that talisman is already locked onto him, so no matter where he runs, he will not be able to escape. Therefore, the only way is to eliminate Wenrui before the talisman is activated. He charges in with everything he has and lands a fatal blow on his opponent. But Wenrui starts laughing, saying it is already too late. A large amount of electric energy forms in the sky and strikes the protagonist, causing a huge explosion and leaving his disciples worried. The two of them go to their master, and Miao Ling asks if he is okay. The protagonist is so badly injured that she becomes worried, telling her master not to get hurt because he cannot do that to her. She takes one of her pills and tosses it to the protagonist while her tears drip onto his face. Qin Tian says that it is very salty. He raises his hand and touches her face. Miao Ling, who is crying her heart out, asks if he is okay, and the protagonist calls her an idiot and asks why she's crying so much. He emphasizes that she can stop crying because he is already perfectly fine. Xiao Ru also approaches and shouts her master's name, asking how he is feeling and whether he is already okay. The protagonist starts getting up and says that he is fine, telling them that they are worrying over nothing. He holds his sword and looks at his opponent lying on the ground. He thinks that, fortunately, the eternal, immortal body helped him withstand most of the damage. Otherwise, he really would have been eliminated there. He gets up, calls her to go, and tells them to consider this very interesting. Then he stretches his hand out to his disciple, saying that it will not be long before he takes her on a trip to the Kunyuan Empire. Miao Ling looks at her master's hand, keeps crying, and holds his hand. Qin Tian goes straight into his ascension, and his two disciples watch it. Xiao Ru points out that her master is gravely injured and questions whether it is really okay for him to undergo the Emperor Tribulation at that moment. But Miao Ling just stays silent, watching what will happen to her master. Qing Qing appears behind her, saying that she really went to the Hoshin Empire without even telling her, and that if it had not been for General Xiao, she would not have known that Miao Ling was there. Miao Ling asks what Qing Ting is doing there. Qing Qing says that she missed her. Xiao Zhan apologizes and says that the protagonist is about to undergo the Emperor Tribulation there, and he was very worried, so he reported what was happening. Empress Zhuan appears there, saying that this is insolent and questions how a princess of a nation can be so rude. Qing Ting tells her mother that it is fine, since Miao Ling is not just anyone. Zhuan scolds her daughter, saying that she seems to never grow up, and tells Miao Ling not to mind it. Qing Qing keeps joking and tells her mother that she will introduce her, saying that she is the empress named Zhuan. The empress points out that her daughter had already talked about Miao Ling before. Miao Ling shows respect and greets the empress. Qing Ting tells Miao Ling that she's being far too polite, since the general has not even greeted them. Xiao Zhan becomes worried and apologizes to both the empress and the princess. Suddenly, a very powerful bolt of lightning appears in the sky, followed by a deafening roar. The empress says that it is already beginning. However, she thinks that this lightning tribulation is unusual. It is not like a normal Emperor Realm tribulation. Miao Ling becomes a little worried and wonders what could be happening. When she underwent the Emperor Realm tribulation in her previous life, the lightning tribulation was not as powerful as this one. She begs for her master to be safe. Meanwhile, the protagonist is at the center of it all and says that, judging by the looks of it, this lightning tribulation is not only an Emperor Realm tribulation, but is also mixed with the tribulation of his physical body. An extremely powerful bolt of lightning comes toward him and passes through his shield, but it strikes the side. The protagonist sees that something is wrong because that lightning looks very much like a lightning person. And sure enough, as soon as the lightning disperses, a humanoid form appears in the middle of all that energy. The Empress cannot believe it, saying that a tribulation lightning bolt turning into a person is something unheard of. Miao Ling questions what went wrong with her master's Emperor Tribulation for it to mutate so much. The protagonist thinks that, as far as he knows, there is no precedent for tribulation lightning taking form during a tribulation in that area. He tells the lightning monster that it is in the wrong place since there is no guy with a sinister old age and a body covered in red hair there. That strange monster starts repeating what the protagonist said, and its body also begins to change a little. Qin Tian realizes that it is transformed into him, and the energy monster tries to attack the protagonist, who gets excited by the situation and also charges forward. The two collide with their attacks, causing a colossal explosion of energy that reaches the sky. The two pull away, and the protagonist says that the physical strength of that guy's body is not right. Qin Tian uses Great Freedom Dragon Transformation Claw. He lands a direct hit on his target. However, that monster starts laughing and uses the eternal immortal body, becoming even stronger. Qin Tian realizes that this is really happening because that guy is the product of the Emperor Tribulation and the physical body tribulation combined. The copy launches a dragon attack at the protagonist, but Qin Tian just keeps laughing, saying that he would really like to see how he can defeat his own copy. He continues using the Art of Liberation, creating an even larger monster. With the monster's attack, he manages to defeat the dragon, but his copy continues attacking. It uses Lightning Tribulation, Great Peng Bird, Flying Feathers, which fill the sky. With that bird, the protagonist monster is defeated, but he once again creates a monster in the shape of a whale and destroys the Peng Bird. The copy is impressed by that monstrous strength. The protagonist continues using his whale and attacks his copy, causing massive destruction in that place. The power of the attack is so great that even the people watching from far away are affected. Xiao Ru shouts that this is not good, because the tribulation platform is about to collapse. But the princess says that it will not, because the Empire's tribulation platform is extremely sturdy and maintained by a great amount of spiritual energy. This is to allow those undergoing tribulations to do so with peace of mind. Even though that platform is so powerful and resistant, the attacks are already causing small damage to the structure. The protagonist copy had taken a direct hit, and the protagonist is mocking it, calling it to fight and asking what else it still has to show. The copy says that the protagonist forced it to do this, and uses despair, supreme form, tribulation lightning mode. The pressure in the surroundings changes drastically, and the protagonist tells his copy to wait a moment, because he had told it to use his moves, not to use a cheat like that. The copy's strength is so great that its speed is terrifying. Qin Tian thinks that now it is too late and that he will not be able to dodge that attack. The copy lands a punch directly on the protagonist's face, but he retaliates by using the eternal immortal body and also lands a punch on the copy's face, causing the two to end up evenly matched. The copy attacks with electric explosion overload, bringing down another absurd bolt of lightning onto the platform. Miao Ling is already almost dying from worrying so much about her master. The protagonist had created an even larger monster, shaped like a colossal turtle, to protect himself from that lightning bolt. However, the copy asks the protagonist if he really believes that hiding behind a turtle shell would allow him to overcome that tribulation, and says that, judging by the looks of it, he underestimated the power of the lightning. Something starts happening around the copy, and the protagonist says that actually that is not what happened, because he used that turtle shell only to buy time. Besides, the copy multiplied itself, so he will have to start using his real weapon. The copy becomes frightened, saying that this supreme artifact is unfair. After all, this is only an Emperor Realm tribulation, with an Emperor Realm physical body tribulation added to it. So the protagonist did not need to take it that seriously. But Qin Tian starts sharpening his sword, saying that magical treasures are also part of a cultivator's strength, so it is fair for him to use them. He throws the sharpener to the ground and tells the copy not to blink from that point on, otherwise it will lose. He emphasizes that the copy is one of the first people to witness the Emperor Realm sword techniques of the heart sword art. Elements bloom, and flowers begin to grow everywhere. The Empress says that this is an array formed by a single person. Qin Tian attacks with the heart sword art, Azure Lotus Immortal Array. The copies try to activate their shields to protect themselves, because with the protagonist forming the array by himself, his spiritual energy consumption must be immense. So if they can protect themselves and wait until his spiritual energy runs out, that sword formation will be broken without any fight at all. Qin Tian says that once formed, the Azure Immortal Lotus can continuously absorb the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to replenish its consumption. Therefore, the sword chi of the Azure Lotus is layered and continuous. That means the copies do not have the slightest chance of defeating it. The copies begin to be defeated, questioning how that is possible. And the final strike is launched, causing such a massive explosion that even the platform begins to break apart. That absurd amount of energy is seen from kilometers away. The system appears, congratulating the protagonist for advancing to the Emperor Realm. The resonance of the Great Tao echoes for 3 days. Great Freedom is upgraded to the 2nd level. Qin Tian smiles, saying that it is finally over. The Empress approaches, congratulating the protagonist for advancing to the Emperor Realm. And from that moment on, the world gained another great emperor. Qin Tian thanks her, saying that she is very kind. Xiao Ru cries and hugs Miao Ling, saying that it was truly incredible. The princess calls the protagonist uncle and says that he is super powerful, which makes the protagonist irritated, telling her not to call him uncle because he is not that old. Suddenly, someone arrives shouting that there is a report of terrible news. The general asks what is making everyone so confused. The young man who was running says that the demon race in the Azure Cloud mountain range is gathering, according to the scouts. The Black Dragon Demon Emperor of the mountain range is preparing to attack Azure Cloud City. Because of that, he came to ask the general to hurry over and help immediately. But Qin Tian starts laughing and asks his fellow general if he is also going to the battle. The protagonist emphasizes that he has just reached the Emperor Realm and wants to test his new abilities and glimpse the power of the Emperor Realm. The Empress says that if the protagonist is that interested, then they can go together and see what that Black Dragon Demon Emperor is capable of. Xiao Zhan tells the messenger that there is no need to rush so much, because that city is not in danger. The messenger becomes a little confused, and the general says that going out without consulting the almanac will bring him bad luck. A short time later in the city, the general asks everyone to pay close attention, be careful, and move slowly. He orders them to load all the crossbows with special arrows and all the spiritual energy cannons. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the twin emperors of antiquity and the fist of the great Tao are established at the center, while gods and transformations pay to pacify the 4 directions. Therefore, the heavens move and the earth remains stable, rotating endlessly. Water flows without stopping, with all things from beginning to end. After they recite the incantation, the floating life array begins to rise. The people are impressed by it. The general observes the entire situation and says that everything is ready. Whether for attack or defense, that city is perfect. The Empress praises him, saying that the arrangements he made were flawless. The general says that this is his duty, so there is no need for so much praise. The Empress says that she heard the general's weapon was damaged because of the battle for the Dragon Vein and asks if that is true. He says yes, so he intends to find Master Bailey to forge another quasi-emperor weapon for him. However, he is not sure if there will be enough time to rush that weapon and deal with the imminent war. The Empress agrees and points out that besides knowing whether there is enough time, they also need to consider the possibility of failing to forge a quasi-emperor level weapon. After all, not even Master Bailey can guarantee a 100% success rate when forging a quasi-emperor weapon. Qin Tian tells the Empress that, regarding this matter, perhaps he can help a little. She asks what he means by that. Qin Tian places his teacup on the table and says that today he will show a little of his true ability. He stands up and tells Zongwu that the weapon he promised last time will be made now. Zongwu lowers his head and thanks his master. The princess asks Miaoling if uncle knows how to forge weapons. She says that her master not only forges weapons, but the weapons he forges are also extraordinary. The princess becomes even more impressed, seeing that he really is very powerful since there is nothing he cannot do. In the courtyard of the painting studio, Qin Tian gathers all his energy and picks up a hammer, telling everyone to watch his 10,000-layer heavenly hammer technique. Xiaozhan asks the princess if he's going crazy, or if that forging hammer is actually an ultimate emperor-level weapon. The princess, also impressed, says that he is not going crazy because she can see it too. Zhuan interrupts the two, saying that this is not the point, and that the protagonist seems to be forging an emperor-level weapon. A short time later, the protagonist finishes his work and raises his new weapon, saying that it is not bad at all and that it looks better on the outside, but he will call it Zongguasaber. Qingqing asks her mother if that really is an emperor-level weapon. She says yes, and Xiaozhan says that it is very good, calling the protagonist a great master. Qin Tian calls Zongwu and says that weapon is for him. Zongwu kneels and thanks the young master for the new weapon, saying that he will go through fire and water to protect his master. Qin Tian asks Xiaozhan if his favorite weapon is a spear, and the general says yes. The princess takes the opportunity and starts begging the protagonist, saying that she also wants one. He says that there is no problem because everyone can receive a weapon. Time passes, and the protagonist continues forging his weapons. 9 days later, he finally finishes his work. He manages to make a sword and a spear with terrifying power. The princess holds her sword, asking why her sword is called Fluffy Pink Bunny, and the general's weapon is called Lucky. The general agrees, saying that those names are a little strange. Qin Tian laughs and says that this is because no one can endure the shame of being killed by Fluffy Pink Bunny, and historically the spear has 22 luckies. With everything ready, the princess says goodbye to the protagonist and the general thanks him for caring and providing those weapons. Qin Tian says that it is fine and asks the two of them to visit him when they have free time. Miaoling appears with a coat, calling her master inside because it is very cold outside. She puts the coat on him and says that he is working hard again right after recovering and that he must not catch a cold. Qin Tian keeps looking at her. Miaoling becomes a little embarrassed and asks why her master is staring at her so much, wondering if there is something stuck on her face. He says that actually it is because she is very beautiful. Miaoling becomes even more embarrassed and shouts, saying that he does not look like a master at all. He laughs, asking what the point is of looking like a master. But suddenly, Xiao Ru appears, running in desperation. The protagonist holds her and asks what is happening, but the little girl only shouts for him to help because it is an emergency. Qin Tian remains a little confused and asks her to calm down and explain what is wrong. Xiaoru says that it is her sister because she ran away from home to find her but was captured by people from the Emperor Alliance along the way. In the middle of the forest, two people were cooking just a little bit of meat. One of them asks Qi Xiang if he is sure Xiaoru will fall into that trap. Xiang says yes, since the two of them have always been inseparable and very close. So when Xiao Ru finds out that her sister Xiao Xiao is in their hands, she will definitely try to save her. The beast says that this is truly enviable sisterly affection. Xiao Xiao, who is tied up and unable to do anything, can only think about her sister. Suddenly, Miaoling appears and cuts the rope, telling Xiao Ru to grab her sister. She runs over and manages to catch Xiao Xiao. Xiang tells the beast that she finally arrived. The beast says that this was expected, because his companion's plans are always perfect. The beast puts on his gloves and says that now it is time for the real meal and that he will do the cooking himself this time. Zongwu appears with full force and attacks the beast, but it manages to dodge. Xiang is surprised, saying that there are even more helpers, and asks if those guys are not afraid of the Emperor Alliance's retaliation. The protagonist looks at them and says that, judging by the looks of it, their intelligence is decades out of date and asks if they really do not know who is on Xiaoru's side. Xiang points out that they were in seclusion for 100 years and only recently came out, but that does not matter. The beast says that eliminating all of them and then taking Xiao Xiao together with Xiao Ru will be more effective. Zongwu tells his master to be careful because, judging by the looks of it, those two are powerful veterans of the Emperor realm. But the protagonist tells his companion that he does not need to worry. Jiang creates his domain and says that the whole scene feels familiar, laughing as he says that, judging by the looks of it, the protagonist's domain has been completely suppressed by his. However, it is not the protagonist's fault because who told him to be at the second level of the Emperor realm, while the protagonist is only at the first? Jiang starts using his moves, but the protagonist only creates a shield around his own body, saying that this is just another domain and is very boring. Qin Tian asks Jiang if he has ever considered that maybe the protagonist finds him too weak and because of that is not using his own domain. Jiang laughs, saying that this is nothing but nonsense, because no matter how strong the protagonist's defenses are, they are useless inside his infinite domain. Qin Tian says that this may be true or it may be false, but he will find out soon. Jiang holds a black sphere between his fingers, telling the protagonist to go straight to hell and uses infinite chess pieces, causing several attacks at the same time. But none of the attacks manage to hit the protagonist's body. Qin Tian says that his opponent's own laws of transformation are nothing more than useless things. He uses the eternal immortal body and the sword of life and death, the power of the negative trinity, creating a huge black sword 40 meters long. Jiang understands the true abyss between the two of them and questions what kind of immense power that is. The protagonist uses his final move, Split in Two. His attack is so powerful that it destroys the entire domain, causing a huge explosion and frightening the people outside. Qin Tian returns as if nothing happened and laughs, saying that one is already gone and now he needs to play a little more. Meanwhile, Zongwu is fighting the beast. The beast keeps attacking, saying that the old swordsman is very good and that fighting him makes its blood boil. Zongwu blocks the beast's attack and says that it is not bad either. He tries to counterattack, but the beast also manages to dodge the attack and points out that it is a pity because the swordsman is old. If it had been a few years earlier, maybe he would have lost that fight. Zongwu tries to attack again, but the boxing beast dodges the attack and counterattacks, saying that the swordsman's movements lack the vigorous spirit of youth. Zongwu thinks that this is starting to get bad because his opponent seems to have infinite stamina. The beast keeps attacking and asks how many more attacks the old swordsman can withstand. One of the attacks manages to hit him, and even while defending, Zongwu is thrown backward with great force. The beast tries to deliver the final blow, but a terrifying energy appears in the middle of their battle, saying that this is the very law of great transformation. The beast is surprised and tries to retreat. Suddenly, dragon claws appear from inside that hole, rushing toward the beast, which cannot understand what that is. The protagonist had invaded the beast's domain and destroyed it with a single strike. Zongwu cannot even understand what just happened, but when he looks to the side, he sees that the protagonist has already defeated everyone and is celebrating with his disciples. Zongwu says that the beast was also a veteran expert in the Emperor realm, but his master managed to eliminate it with a single strike. Xiao Ru hugs her master, saying that fortunately he was there, otherwise she would not have known what to do. Qin Tian tells her that everything is fine now because both assassins were turned to ashes by him. Xiao Ru agrees and says that she had forgotten to introduce her sister, named Bai Xiao Xiao. Xiao Xiao stares at the two of them hugging and asks her sister if the protagonist is her brother-in-law. Xiao Xiao turns around and starts crying, thinking that this is too shocking because her proud older sister, the Empress of Qingqiu, who always has her head in the clouds, is actually hugging a man. Xiao Ru pushes the protagonist away and tries to tell her sister to wait a moment, because it is not what she is thinking. Xiao Xiao points out that she needs to go back and tell everyone this good news. Xiao Ru keeps arguing with her sister, telling her not to talk nonsense, because the protagonist is not her brother-in-law. Xiao Xiao, who is crying from emotion, asks who he is, since he is not her brother-in-law. Xiao Ru prepares to explain, but thinks that she cannot say that the relationship she has with the protagonist is that of master and servant, because if that gets out, how will she face her younger sister? She falls into despair, wondering what she should say to her sister. The next day at the protagonist's studio, Miaoling says that she is going to take Xiao Xiao out to play for a while. Qin Tian says that it is fine and asks them to come back early. Zongwu goes to his master and says that there are many people of unknown origin in that city, asking if Qin Tian needs him to protect them in secret. Qin Tian says that there is no need, because those people are only walking around the city, so they will be fine. Besides, he gave that to Miaoling. A short time later, in the middle of the city, Xiao Xiao is impressed by the things around her, asking what that is. The vendor says that it is his shop's specialty, mighty wine, and that if she drinks that wine, he guarantees that she will be able to break the bedboards, saying that it is truly incredible. Xiao Xiao is impressed, saying that it really is incredible, and tells her older sister that she wants to buy it. But Xiao Ru scolds her sister, saying that children cannot drink alcohol and offers her sweets when they return. But Xiao Xiao sulks, thinking that she does not want sweets. Miao Ling is distracted, looking to the side. Xiao Ru notices this and asks what is wrong. Miao Ling explains that it is nothing because she just saw an acquaintance. She asks Xiao Ru to take her sister to play for a while because she will be right back. She follows the acquaintance into the middle of the forest. The man notices this and stops, saying that this is far enough because he has already realized that she followed him there. He is Shui Kuang, the son of the ancestor of the blood domain. Miao Ling comes a little closer, and Kuang asks who exactly she is. Miao Ling introduces herself, saying that she is the person who will eliminate him, because today she will take his life as payment. She draws her sword, and Kuang says that since she will not say who she is, he will have to interrogate her properly once he captures her. The two begin to fight and collide with their attacks, showing that both of them have absurd power. The surrounding trees begin to be uprooted because of the pressure and the blows from the two of them. Miao Ling continues attacking, and Kuang realizes that she used her domain. Suddenly, he begins to be hit by countless attacks. Kuang thinks that this is not right because that is actually not a domain, but a domain simulated by sword intent. If this continues, he will have no way out and will be eliminated, so he needs to ask for help. He shouts for his father to help him, and suddenly a huge explosion happens. A shield is created around Kuang, and the spirit asks who she is and how she dares to try to eliminate his son. Miao Ling is surprised, thinking that although it is only a spiritual body, she knows that guy because he is one of her 3 enemies, the ancestor of the blood domain. Kuang smiles and tells his father to help him capture that woman, because he would very much like to have fun with her later. His father says that this woman is indeed quite a promising beauty, and that he will do as his son wishes. Miao Ling starts laughing and asks if they really think they have already won. She snaps her fingers and orders him to hold back the ancestor of the blood domain for her. Wenrui appears and attacks the two from behind, causing a huge explosion against the barrier. As soon as the barrier breaks, he continues attacking, and the ancestor needs to dodge. The ancestor asks why immortal Wenrui is doing this, but Wenrui does not answer anything and only keeps staring at him with blood-red eyes. Sometime earlier, during Qin Tian's fight against Wenruhe, as soon as he stood up, Miao Ling asked her master what they should do with Wenruhe's corpse. The protagonist explained to her that he had a special use for it. The demonic sound corpse control technique uses demonic sounds to control corpses. Corpses up to the supreme level can be controlled, and each level increases the number of controlled corpses by 1. Returning to the present, Miao Ling continues attacking Kuang. The ancestor realizes that this is very bad because his son is in danger, but he cannot advance to help. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new content. Thank you.